That is the Georgian anthem. And before we get started, let's do the Utah anthem because we got 2 debates tonight, and I don't want to discriminate on states. Georgia on My Mind is a pretty good anthem for a state. Let's just be honest. Papa, what's good? Now we're going to do Utah's anthem, and we'll compare. Who is better? Georgia. I'm starting. Time to start plotting my Zima heist. No way, dude. It's Pellegrino time now. Now it's time for okay, I'm back. Weird. My internet isn't being very polite with me. All right, I'm back. All right. T-Boss on SNL on Twitch. What up? Hello, mate. The Utah anthem, much better. Jazzy. All right, let's be the judge. You know, I don't want to just say that Georgia had the best anthem. I want to be on. What is going on with my internet? Are we having a bad internet day? Okay. I am like dropping frames. You know, is this going to be one of these nights? What is going on? All right, let's do the Utah national anthem. Here we go. Okay, that is creepy. What is that? That is so creepy. Okay. Something about kids singing is scary to me. Hold on a second. My internet is being all janky. I want to fix a setting. Okay. Hopefully that'll fix it. All right, here we go. Let's do Utah. Let's freaking do. If I owned a state, my anthem would be Thunderstruck. 100%. Thunderstruck. Okay, here we go. Here's Utah. This is borderline creepy. They don't give us the words to this. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Leave it to the Mormons to have a beehive. I know. Wait. This is the place. Utah. 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 This is the place. The place. Yeah. Whoa. I mean, I don't want everyone to hear that again. How's everyone doing this lovely Monday as we're going to gear up for 2 debates? We got 2 debates back to back. We got Stacey Abrams and Kemp, and then we also have Utah's debate as well. So we got 2 debates back to back. I hope you're strapped in and ready to go. This is the Derek O'Shea Show.
Welcome to the revolution.
Oh, but I am back from vacation. Cords on Rumble. What's good, man? How you doing, man? I hope you're doing well. What is the deal with my internet right now? I swear, if I have to like redo everything, I'm going to lose my mind. But let's get started off with a little Biden today. as we get started. Papa says their flag emblem. Sorry, making commentary on the phone. Keyboard hard. That's the worst. Don't forget to say dot when you're spelling.
If you get any questionable calls, please tell us by going to report fraud, dotftc.gov.
DOT. Your internet knows. It certainly seems like it, man. Freaking don't just like say dot. www.dot.
If you get any questionable calls, please tell us by going to report fraud, dotftc.
The Biden is the gift that keeps on giving. Let's just be honest about that. All right. Now it's my time to find this debate. Seems like they're going to make it hard to find this debate. It's being hosted by Loudermilk Young Debate Series, Governor, at 7 p.m. Oh, they finally put it up on the live stream. Good. All right, I will have all the debates going on at the same time. I really hope I don't have to like redo my internet. This is just fix it. God. How's everyone doing this Monday? Well, any thoughts? Any thoughts on the day? Any thoughts on what happened in the world today? I saw a video of a man fighting a bear with one hand. People are talking about Herschel Walker. People are talking about so much of what's going on. Biden is a gift that keeps on giving. I want the receipt so I can make it return. Same. I saw this today, and I thought this was kind of funny. Hey, Queen Bird, what's good? Good afternoon, Derek, and the chat. How is everyone?
You are going to have to work with President Biden and Democrats in order to get anything done.
That's right.
So let me ask you, can you name one thing that President Biden has done that you support?
One thing that he's done that I support. He eat a lot of ice cream.
Is there anything policy-wise?
Who doesn't love ice cream? I mean, come on. The guy loves ice cream. Choco chip. Did anybody watch that Herschel Walker debate? I did not watch it. I just, saw what everyone was talking about at the end. The debate starts in 10 minutes, by the way. I will have the debate up, and I won't talk over it the whole time like other people do. I will try to do my best when it comes to that. And I will also fix my green screen. Boom. Bada bing. Bada boom. Bada bing. Bada boom. Wilson, it's my birthday. I hope everyone's having a great day. Dude, happy birthday. We're going to sing Wilson a happy birthday. There's got to be one. All right, here we go.
Happy birthday, Wilson. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, Wilson.
Okay, that's enough. Wilson, happy birthday, Wilson. It's your birthday. How old are you, man? Did you have the same birthday last year? Okay. I'm glad I got one debate lined up. Somebody was passing this video around. This might be funny. The realities of the Joe Biden. That's my freaking. That made my day. Hey, I appreciate it. Hey, good. I hope it made your day, man. 34 years young. Still got your good knees. Don't have to stretch as much before you work out. Good for you.
I spend more time working on these cars than with my own family.
I spend my days digging holes, cutting grass, and sweating.
This is job number 2 today. So my customers aren't the only ones drinking coffee.
I'm breaking my back out here for one reason.
I want to pay off some other guy's debt.
Biden's Biden's plan to pay other people's college loans using my tax dollars is a great idea.
Biden's right. You should take my tax dollars to pay off your debts. My family will figure out how to get by with less. What's most important is we spare college graduates from any extra stress.
Want to be a struggling artist? College is on me.
My kids don't need fancy things like school supplies or new shoes.
I work for you, theater major.
This shift is for you, business major. Go buy yourself that new car.
Enjoy your free ride. College is on me.
Tell Congress, stop Biden's big.
That's pretty good. It's literally what I've been saying for so long. That is triggering people. We got 8 minutes left before the debate. We got to get a poll going on. Dude, again, Wilson, happy birthday, man. Cheers. Oh, I just went in my nose. God. Did anybody do anything fun this weekend? Okay, get this going. Happy birthday to you. Why was that song so cringy? All right. Where is this? Okay. Sorry. I swear I'm going to get this fixed. Oh, there we go. Hard sale. Made some cash. Not a bad weekend. Hey, good. Considering doing something fun, then I didn't. What happened? Who will win the debate? Stacey or Kemp? Okay. Hey, it's my first poll. How exciting is that? I just crushed it. We're having a good time. Okay, we got 6 minutes left. I'm considering doing something fun. I got sleepy. Hey, man, that happens to the best of us. I got sleepy too this weekend. I went to see Alice. Cords on Rumble says he went to see Alice Cooper. Amazing. School's out for summer. Oh, by the way, I have a drinking game for this debate. Oh, Papa, what is it? What's the drinking game? I'm sure it'll be too good to be true. Also, we have big news. The White House. The White House is finally telling us when the Inflation Reduction Act is going to start reducing deflation. We finally have an answer, so here it is.
On inflation, can you give us a timeline? You've laid out eloquently what the president's been doing. Is there a timeline for when Americans can start feeling some economic pain relief?
So in regards to the Inflation Reduction Act, early next year, they will see some of the pieces of that. When you think about an energy cost, when you think about the Medicare kind of benefits from that, so we'll see some movement on that early next year. But when we talk about inflation, gas prices, that's been something that's the American people have seen for the past several months, several weeks, and as costs has been coming down. And the hearing aids that I just laid out, that's something that once I have a clearer timeline, that Americans are going to see, that I'll share with you on all of that. But
more than on inflation.
Awesome. Hearing aids, inflation, it's all the same thing. But early next year, hold them accountable to those words. And then when you hold them accountable and ask them to say, hey, you said early next year, and then they're going to say, well, we didn't expect blank, blank, blank to happen. You can't write this stuff. It's just part of the circle. It's a beautiful circle. Every time Stacey Abrams says that anything about her losing the election, don't take a drink, you'll almost certainly die, probably. You think they'll ask her? I don't think they'll ask her about that. Because they're trying to constantly create the narrative that it's the right that is the election deniers. And the left has never done that before. It's always the right, you know. It's what the right is doing to the left, and then for the right people, it's what the left is doing to the right. And it's just like this never-ending circle of what everyone's doing to everyone. And so you stay up in arms about everything that's going on. All right, well, everyone's voting for Kemp to win. He better win after that. We got 4 minutes until countdown. Freaking 4 minutes. You won't need to ask her. She'll say it anyways. That's probably true. She'll probably say... Kemp will probably bring it up, and then she'll have to respond to it. I don't know. Kemp should bring up her talking about election and still winning, and then also Kemp should bring up her talking about the whole, conspiracy of the heartbeat. The 6-week heartbeat that's a manufactured sound manufactured by X-ray techs and men to suppress women and their ideologies. Okay. It's almost time to start another Georgia national anthem. I also have some other videos queued up in case it gets boring. We have Piers Morgan talking to a mother of the Sandy Hook victims, talking about Alex Jones. That could be interesting, or it could be a total snooze fest. And then I also have Jon Stewart lined up as well, talking about the tax system, which should be so funny because they always talk about the rich, going after the rich, but then we're creating a bigger generational wealth gap than ever right now due to policies by the Democrats, as always. So, and then Matt Walsh also got in some trouble today. Let's check this video out. Matt Walsh condemning cartoons, going after cartoons. That's his thing. Sweet Baby Gang is at it again.
What's your opinion on anime? It's really popular amongst teens and young adults. I think it's all satanic. I have no argument for it. I have no argument for why it's satanic. It just seems that way to me. All anime.
Oh my God, that's like the stupidest argument ever. I don't know why, but it seems that way, so therefore it is.
To me seems weird, just like bizarre, creepy. And in general, I don't think that adults should be, whether it's anime or any other kind of cartoon, with rare exception, adults really shouldn't be watching cartoons in general, I would say.
Oh my God. God, this is so dumb. This has to be a joke, right? I mean, come on. God. It's like, if it's serious, it's one of those things that's like, this is where people on the right like lose me. It's like, it's satanic. I don't know why. I don't have any reasons to say why it's satanic. It just is. It's just kind of like people saying that, like, if you're playing video games as an adult, like, you should be taken less seriously or something like that, as opposed to it being part of our culture as we grew up and stuff like that. Like, it's just, it's such a losing debate and such a losing thing to talk about. It's just like, and he's using it based on feeling. I don't know. I can't tell if this is something to be taken seriously or not, but I get so cringed out when people start talking like that. Just like, it doesn't feel right. You can't do it. It's like, I mean, it's like the first season of SpongeBob. What a classic season that is. If you don't laugh at that, even as an adult, I don't know what to tell you. First season, after that, it's trash. Also, Rick and Morty is funny. Like, there are so many good cartoons. Weren't the first cartoons written specifically for adults? Just saying, hey, there you go. Thank you, Wilson. Exactly. It's just like children's book. You know, C.S. Lewis always said children's books aren't written for children. Because a lot of like children's books, cartoons and stuff like that have simple, profound truths that they broaden out to the wide range of audience so everyone can embrace and enjoy them. Yes, there are some cartoons that are cringy and just stupid and not funny, but there are some cartoons that are just hilarious. I mean, so Dora the Explorer, totally the work of the devil. Yeah, exactly, Papa. Dora the Explorer. Where is it? ¿Qué pasa? See, I don't know. Hey, that's the devil stuff. You better turn that off. Turn it off right now. We're waiting. Okay, the debate's starting.
You are on the side of public opinion.
Oh, crap.
Candidates have 60 seconds to answer each question. Chuck Williams, you get the first question of Stacey Abrams.
Thank you, Donna. Ms. Abrams, public opinion polls in our state show support for the right to abortion, Medicaid expansion, and banning assault weapons. You are on the side of public opinion in each of these issues, yet you are behind in almost every poll. Why?
First of all, thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity to address the communities of Georgia. The reason people are on my side are because I'm on the right side of history and on the right side of the issues. But we also know that polls are a snapshot. The question is, who are they taking a picture of? When I'm going across this state, the people I'm talking to are excited about this election, but they also know that they're often left out of the conversation. Students who have found themselves
Off air? What? Okay, what just happened? See, this is what happens when you rely on other people. What? Okay. What just happened? We had it. What? They just like cut it off? Okay. I found it. I thought I found it. Okay, this is ridiculous, dude.
afraid of the gun.
Okay.
Is who are they taking a picture of? When
Sorry,
I'm going
guys.
across this state, the people I'm talking to are excited about this election, but they also know that they're often left out of the conversation. Students who have found themselves struggling to finish college because they don't have access to financial aid. Families that are struggling to decide between food on their table and healthcare costs. Families facing rising prices. And everyone I've met is afraid of the gun violence and the rising violence in this state. I do not believe that I'm behind. I believe that I'm making the case for Georgia, the case for electing me as the next governor, because the current failures we have seen in this state are not only damning, they are disqualifying. And over the next few years, we have an opportunity to change the trajectory of the state, and I look forward to leading our state forward.
Thank you very much. Greg Bluestein, it's your turn to ask a question of Brian Kemp.
Thank you, Donna. Governor, in recent weeks, 2 recordings have surfaced in which you left the door open, or you appeared to leave the door open, to questions about whether you'd push to ban emergency contraceptives and whether you'd back a statewide ban on the destruction of embryos. Can you tell us right now whether you'd push for these measures or any other additional restrictions on abortion now that the 2019 law is in effect?
No, I would not. I mean, look, we were at many campaign events. People come up, secret recordings, couldn't completely understand the conversation that's going on. But no, that's not my desire to do that. Georgians should know that my desire is to...
What is going on? They now haven't... They are having like difficulty. Look at this. This is so bad. They're having like difficulties. Look, this is somebody's computer. Somebody's computer.
It's been on, and it's what it will continue to be on.
Thank you very much. Jennifer Bellamy, your question for Shane Hazel.
Mr. Hazel, Georgia seems to be struggling right now in dealing with how to legally take on the issue of cannabis in the state. What do you think needs to be done here? How should Georgia address the issues surrounding marijuana?
I guess a perfect question for a libertarian. We believe that cannabis is a plant that grows from earth naturally, and the hubris that the federal government has shown in making a Schedule I
It's 2022.
drug while also holding patents on it.
The internet knows this is literally
We
Terminator
find it
Genesis. It
somewhat
certainly
laughable.
seems like it.
And it is. It is a right of people. It is medicine. It is something that we can add to our industry here in Georgia and really displace a lot of what comes in from outside of Georgia.
Oh,
this is
Sturfany.
a huge win for Georgia. We have a great agricultural sector. We can grow 2 bumper crops of cannabis every year. The idea that it is still illegal and that Brian Kemp has talked about this and tweeted about it as it is a good thing when we make cannabis bust and cannabis bust only is a real sign that the government in Georgia is using it for the prison industrial complex, for the law enforcement complex to go after communities that would
Hey, what up, Salt
like, see
Army?
freedom in this area. So
how we
it's a
feeling?
right. That's how
Stay
we see
salty.
as libertarians.
Right. Thank you very much. You have a rebuttal?
Yeah, I would just like to make sure people at home know that I have been doing exactly what I told them I would do when I was campaigning for governor, and now that I am your governor. We have been going after street gangs and drug cartels. So the things that we're tweeting out there is when our great men and women in law enforcement are making drug busts, not from recreational users
It's a plant.
and other things. But that's what my focus is on.
So
All right.
cocaine
Thank you
is
very
also
much,
a plant.
Greg, please ask a question of Stacey Abrams.
Yeah, Ms. Abrams, in 2018, you didn't concede defeat to Governor Kemp. You talked to systemic problems with the state's election system. This election, do you commit to accept the outcome of the vote, regardless of what it shows? And
Here
do
we
you stand
go,
by
election.
the use of words like rigged 4 years ago to describe the state's election system?
In 2018, I began my speech on November 16th acknowledging that Governor Kemp had won the election. I then proceeded to lay out in grave detail the challenges faced by voters under his leadership as Secretary of State, including the 10+2 who were arrested in Quitman, Georgia, because they had the temerity to use absentee ballots. I told the story of students who were denied access to the right to vote, even though they had duly registered. 80,000 complaints had come in by that day, and it took 4 years of federal investigation in a lawsuit that was the longest running voting rights lawsuit in the state's in recent history that proved us right. Now, we didn't win every single claim, but we forced massive changes to the election laws. And unfortunately, Brian Kemp and Brad Raffensperger have decided to restore their greatest hits. Just today, a homeless woman was denied the right to vote in Forsyth County because she did not receive a provisional ballot because she had been challenged. As governor, I intend to stand up for the right to vote. I will always acknowledge the outcome of elections, but I will never deny access to every voter, because that is the responsibility of every American to defend the right to vote.
Thank you. Brian Kemp, rebuttal, 30 seconds.
Well, I would just say that Ms. Abrams is going to do a lot of attacking of my record tonight because she doesn't want to talk about her own record. In 2018, in the governor's race, we had the largest African-American turnout in the country. She said that Senate Bill 202, our Recent Elections Integrity Act, what we passed 2 years ago, would be suppressive in Jim Crow 2.0. Just this past May in our primaries, we again had record turnout in the Republican primary and the Democratic primary. In Georgia, it's easy to vote and hard to cheat.
And I'd like to add just a second here, as the libertarian.
30 seconds for you.
Although you will push for people to have access to going to the polls and voting, you're not pushing ballot access. This is a huge oppression for people like the third parties, the people that want to get their people on the ballot. We have, I think, 20% Democrats, 20% Republicans in the state of Georgia. That leaves 60% of people in Georgia unrepresented by ballot access laws that both of them support.
30 seconds, Ms. Abrams.
Actually, to correct Mr. Hazel, I co-sponsored legislation to expand ballot access because I agree with you that third parties should have better access to the right to vote in the state of Georgia. I co-sponsored it with one of our independents in the state legislature. But let's be clear about ballot access and voter access.
From increased
Brian
demand
Kemp
and
was the
workloads.
Secretary of State.
Many are
and
now
he has
facing care that will be
denied access to the right to vote. We know that the right to vote is the only way that we can make the changes we need in the state, the only way we can make the changes we need in this country, whether it's access to the right to an abortion, the ability to take care of our families. We need a governor who believes in access to the right to vote and not in voter suppression, which is the hallmark of Brian Kemp's leadership.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on.
With all due respect, I was
voter
called
suppression.
out. I would like to just the record reflect, as my time as Secretary of State, I'm the person that created the online voter registration system in this state, where any Georgian can vote, register to vote 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So for someone to say that we have been suppressive in our state when we've seen turnout increase over the years,
what's up,
including with minorities
Tikik
like
Muhammad
African-Americans, Latinos,
in Ohio.
and others,
How you
is
doing,
simply
man?
not true. And again,
At least
Ms.
GA is
Abrams
having a
gonna
bit,
lie
yes.
about my record because she doesn't want to talk about her own.
All right, we're going to move on here.
And that's the case.
We're going
Tariq
to move on here,
Muhammad, sorry.
Mr. Hazel. Jennifer, your question for Brian Kemp.
Governor Kemp, several hospitals and medical centers across the state have announced or gone through with plans to close their doors, leaving a gap in care and a reduction in services. at a time when our healthcare workers
Gaz,
are
how
already
dare you
suffering
talk
from
about
burnout,
Abrams
from
on
increased demand
Star
and workloads.
Trek?
Many are now facing care that will be delayed or unavailable, while our state's capital will soon have only one level 1 trauma center. What will you do to ensure Georgians have access to critical healthcare services and hospitals?
Well, I would just remind voters at home there's also hospitals being built across this state and new options for people for health care. Look, the AMC situation was something that was thrown on a lot of political leaders, including me. But instead of complaining about it and doing the blame game,
Tariq, I hope you're doing good, my dude.
With Fulton County, with DeKalb County, with Democrats to come up with a solution that puts state resources into Grady to help make sure people have the access and the care that they need in our state. And I'm committed to continuing to do that in the future.
All right. Shane, I'm sorry. Chuck, you get the final question to Shane Hazel.
Thank you. Mr. Hazel, you ran for Congress in 2018. That was just 4 years ago. You ran as a Republican. You got less than 30% of the vote in the Republican primary.
Called out.
What happened between then and now that made you a libertarian?
Oh, I actually came back to my roots as a libertarian. We believe in freedom. We saw what the Republican Party was. We saw what the Democratic Party was. They are force and coercion. No matter what they talk about, it's force and coercion. Whether it's certificate of need for hospitals, whether it is
my dude.
taking guns away from law-abiding citizens, it is always force
No
and
woman is
coercion
that soulless. Just ask my ex-wife.
From the Democrats and Republicans to look at life through consent, the eyes that, hey, we can all have transactions. We do it every day in the private sector. 99.9% of us go throughout our day without raping people, without murdering people, without pointing guns at people to take their property. That is not what the government does under Republicans and Democrats, period. That's how I became a libertarian. This is why we're going to send this thing into a runoff. And if people were really looking for something to change, you'd vote libertarian. You'd send a message to both of these parties, because one of these people will most likely be the executive in a rigged system, that you want to be more free.
Thank you. That concludes the first round of the debate. The candidates will now ask a question to each of their opponents.
This is about to get.
Will have 30 seconds.
You're on the Leah
to
Thomas swim team.
60
Congrats,
seconds
man.
To respond, and the candidate who asks the questions will have
Or
30
woman.
seconds for rebuttal. By random selection, Brian Kemp, you may ask the first question to Stacey Abrams.
This will be good.
Well, thank you very much. As many people know, I have over 100 sheriffs endorsing my campaign, several which are Democrats. And my question for Ms. Abrams tonight is how many sheriffs statewide have publicly endorsed your campaign?
Mr. Kemp, what you are attempting to do is continue the lie that you've told so many times. I think you believe it's the truth. Upset. I support law enforcement and did so for 11 years. Worked closely with the Sheriff's Association. I'm probably the only person standing here who's ever actually written a SOP for a police department when I was working for the city of Atlanta. But I have two brothers, one who has committed crimes, and I want his victims to be able to call the police and get the help they need, and I've always supported that right. But I have another brother who has faced being pulled over for driving while black when he was coming back from his job as a social worker. Unlike you, I don't have the luxury of relying on slogans to describe my position on public safety. I believe that we need safety and justice because I love both of my brothers. And like most Georgians, I lead a complicated life where we need access to help, but we also need to know that we are safe from racial violence. While you may not have had that experience, too many people I know have, and that is why I will always stand up for making certain that safety and justice are the conversations we're having in Georgia and the delivery we have as the next governor of Georgia.
Thank you. 30 seconds, Mr. Kemp.
Well, I would just tell people that, look, I support safety.
That's a good
and
question,
justice.
Tariq, man.
But Ms. Abrams refused to answer the question, so I'll let you know that the answer is 0. No sheriffs are endorsing her statewide because of her stances on wanting to defund the police, eliminate cash bail, and serving on the boards of organizations like the Margaret Casey Foundation that supports and gives grants to organizations that are promoting the defund the police movement.
If I may respond, because he actually lied there.
Yes,
I do have the support of sheriffs, but unlike Mr. Kemp, I do not make it my plan to list every person who supports me. I have the support of sheriffs, I have the support of advocates, I have the support of victims, I have the support of those who want to be treated fairly in our system. I have to have conversations with the entirety of Georgia. I don't have the luxury of being a part of a good old boys club where we don't focus on the needs of our people. And that is why my mission has been to put out very concrete plans explaining how I will serve justice, how I will serve safety, and how I will serve the citizens of the state of Georgia.
30 seconds, Brian Kemp.
Well, look, I would just tell people, I know Miss Abrams is upset and mad because these are things that she said. This is not me making this up. This is things that she said in interviews that she's done, and she's sitting on organizations that you can go look at the facts yourself. And that's why the men and women in law enforcement want a governor that is going to stand with them, who has been with them, not only to have their back, but also stand shoulder to shoulder on things like civil unrest and going after street gangs and human traffickers.
Thank you very much. Stacey Abrams, you get the next question for Shane Hazel.
Here we go.
Republicans and Democrats have raised the alarm over the rise in the Chinese Communist Party-backed companies purchasing American farmland. To date, they've purchased more than 1 million acres of farmland in the state of Georgia. Would you agree?
She just said she has a brother who's a criminal.
That allowing those purchases in the state of Georgia is a sign of madness? And would you be concerned about the national security implications of the Chinese Communist Party purchasing this land with the support of the state of Georgia?
I see the setup for this question. I understand why it was projected at me. As libertarians, we believe that you own your property and that the state can't take it away from you and can't sell it or can't determine who you sell it to. The CCP, obviously, which is going through its own internal unrest right now, I believe is probably purchasing this with things like central bank digital dollars and yuan, which are also coming down to a critical nature where people are in uprising in China. What we need to look at is how these purchases are being made. Are we accepting fiat, CCP yuan in Georgia as an actual currency? It's about as good as the U.S. currency, the fiat currency that we're about to have hoisted on us in terms of a CBDC.
This guy.
I'm not going to tell you
struggling right
or
now.
anybody else as governor how or who to sell.
Not a very
your
strong
property to.
libertarian.
And I imagine that in the end,
No, you should be only allowed to sell it to an American citizen,
Stacey
period.
Abrams, 30 seconds.
The state of Georgia is watching our farmland be purchased by the Chinese Communist Party. And while that is not normally a conversation that we have,
Tariq.
it is something that we should be concerned about.
What is Stacey Abrams looking at? She's looking straight into the camera.
And Georgia has 13 military installations. The fact that the state of Georgia is working with the Chinese Communist Party, using one of their technologies that both Donald Trump and Joe Biden have warned is very much a national security threat, should be of great concern to every Georgian. This is not about being concerned simply about who's owning the land, but it's about how much access to our information they have because of the state.
Thank you. Shane Hazel, you may ask your question of Stacey Abrams.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. The military-industrial complex is a big problem. It is. And the fact that we have people trying to come here to, I don't know, get a backdoor into our military, I think one of the things we should be talking about as Georgians and as executives is the Defend the Guard Act, where our military has been used very, I don't know, haphazardly.
Bill Gates
around
owns
the world
thousands
to
of
go
acres. Yeah, I
and
know.
take resources from the Middle East, or now in
Mr.
Ukraine.
Hazel, your question.
This is my question to who?
To Stacey Abrams.
Oh, we've already switched gears.
Yes.
My question to you, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I have hearing problems, guys. My question to you is, I mentioned CBDCs. As the executive of Georgia, when we come into a
That should have went to
CBDC
Kemp about
from the Federal
CCP.
Reserve,
I know. I agree.
Will you, as the executive, accept this CCCP-style currency?
I believe that the conversation about currency is a complicated one, and part of the challenge we have is how this currency is transmitted, the very real security threats with digital currency, the hacking and mining of that digital currency should concern all Georgians. As the governor of Georgia, I will work very closely with the Federal Reserve, but also with the innovators and the entrepreneurs who do see an opportunity. But before we take a step forward that could put us at risk, our responsibility is to understand the complexity of what is happening with these transactions. And as exciting as it is, we also know it's deeply problematic when we do not have the adequate safeguards in place. That's one of the reasons I've raised concerns about WeChat and about the purchase of farmland. But what we know overall is that we need a governor who's conversant in these issues, who understands that, for example, in the state of Georgia, We have access to $3.5 billion in American currency that could be delivered tomorrow to save our hospitals and to save our lives. But our current governor has refused to accept those dollars. My intention is to do what's best for the state of Georgia every single day.
Thank you. Shane Hazel, you get a 30-second rebuttal.
Yeah, working with the Federal Reserve, who's got us into the mess that we are in right
100%,
now,
Tariq.
because of a centralized fiat currency, it will be absolutely worthless. They will be dangling carrots in front of the governor, in front of the executives, in front of the legislature to do exactly what their mandates are. If they are mandating that they take the property of people, then they will do it. If they want to invade your homes, your privacy, your businesses,
This is a
they
losing
will do it
argument
because
for
of
libertarians.
CBDC.
You get in the weeds
All right.
for most
Stacey
modern
Abrams,
people
please
or
ask your
average
question to
people.
Brian
They're like,
Kemp.
fiat currency, what's that?
Mr. Kemp, under your leadership, there is currently a 100-year gap between minority-owned businesses and majority-owned businesses. Although minorities comprise 48% of the population, they only generate 12.2% of the business revenue in the state. And under every analysis that we have seen, it will take 100 years to close that gap, given the current process that you have in place. You served 4 years in the Senate, 8 years as Secretary of State in charge of businesses. You served 4 years as governor. What are your concrete, specific, targeted plans to decrease and address the racial equity gap currently facing contracting and purchasing for minority-owned businesses?
Governor Kemp?
Well, I would remind Georgians that the first part of my plan was keeping our state open for business and allowing all business people and working Georgians to work when Stacey Abrams was criticizing me for doing that. Also pushing to get our kids back in the classroom when, again, Stacey Abrams was criticizing me for doing that. A lot of Georgians, including African Americans and other minorities, cannot go to work if their kids are not in the classroom. We have the lowest unemployment rate in the country for African Americans. We also were named we're in the top 10 of the states for black entrepreneurship in the state of Georgia. So our economy is incredible, and we will continue to work with all of those entrepreneurs in the days ahead and working class Georgians, because we are the ones that have been fighting for you when Miss Abrams was not. We were giving tax refunds. We were doing tax cuts. We were suspending the gas tax to help you deal with 40-year high inflation when she was criticizing us.
Stacey Abrams, 30-second rebuttal.
I would point out that Mr. Kemp did not address the needs of purchasing and contracts for black and brown-owned businesses, which is what he has refused to do for the last 16 years. We know that $10.9 billion has been delivered to the state of Georgia through 2 recent acts at the congressional level. And Brian Kemp does not have a plan for making certain that people of color have access to those contracts, access to purchasing. It was only in July of this year that he finally acknowledged that there might be a problem. He has said that we need to study it. I would tell him, just cheat off of my paper. I know the answer. We need a governor who actually believes in equity, racial equity, economic equity in the state of Georgia, and I will deliver.
Thank you. Shane Hazel, please ask your question to Brian Kemp.
Brian, in 2020,
Certainly seems
on April
like
2nd,
it.
you
She's
locked
pretty
down
on fire
Georgia,
right now.
threatening peaceful people.
Even though I don't
with
agree with
coercion.
what she's saying.
You called people in Georgia
She's pretty
non-essential,
locked in.
and it killed millions of jobs. You bent the knee to big pharma and pushed a vaccine that was untested on people, and it has killed people. They have lost their loved
YouTube,
ones.
that's not me.
You've allowed bureaucracy to invade our businesses, and then you had the audacity to brag about record tax revenue. You want to say sorry to anybody?
So is that a question, or?
That is a question. Do you want to say sorry to anybody?
Well, look, I'll be glad to talk about my record, because obviously Mr. Hazel is gravely mistaken. If you look at the executive orders that I signed, we said every business in Georgia was essential. There was a few that we asked to help us stop the spread, flatten the curve, build PPE supplies and hospital bed capacities, because unlike him, I was getting the calls from hospitals saying, hey, we are out of surgical gowns. We're out of masks. We need ventilators. And we were literally working 24/7 to supply those items while also keeping our economy open in this state. And as you know, I was the first state to open the small parts that we asked to close, and our recovery's been as good as any state in the country.
Keep it.
We have had 2 record years of economic development because of our business environment, working with the General Assembly.
For real, what up?
To make sure that we're putting Georgians first.
Stacey Abrams' batteries are holding up well.
First, and that's what I'm committed to continuing to do.
Dude, she's fully charged tonight.
You should have put Georgia freedom first, period. You didn't have the power to lock down businesses. And you signed the executive order on April 2nd. It was clear as day. I sat there and watched you do it. And I was like, there is no coming back from this.
He's so nervous.
I guess the default was to lock down Georgia instead of trusting Georgians with their freedom to adapt in a time of very changing circumstances, I think is a tyrant
Kemp
move.
looks so mad.
And I think the left and right are fascist and communist socialists, whereas we're talking about real liberty.
Hey, I appreciate that,
Georgians
Gaz.
with those decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Hazel. Brian Kemp, you have the final question in this round for Shane Hazel.
Well, I would just ask Mr. Hazel if he supports the things that we have done, because we were open and Georgians were working and we've had excess revenue. So instead of doing big,
we need a word of the day. Put a word of the day on the chat.
Yeah,
we need a word.
I don't support it, because here's the thing: is when we get to that point, when we talk about what you're doing.
To ask my
finish your question.
Please go ahead.
I would just say, do you support the tax cuts we've done, returning $1 billion of taxpayer money, and suspending the gas tax for Georgians to help fight through 40-year high inflation?
My new favorite channel? Hey, that means a lot to me.
Georgia,
Thank
I hope
you.
You hear me when I say libertarians think taxation is theft. It's your money. It's your property. You should be able to determine what you do with it. I don't support the fact that you haven't ended qualified immunity. I don't support the fact that you haven't
feeling all
ended
funny,
civil
boy.
torture. I don't support the fact that you haven't ended the drug war. You haven't ended nonviolent crime. You haven't ended cash bail. You haven't ended no-knock raids. You haven't implemented community review boards. And you haven't banned blacked-out cop cars that go after people for more money. It's ridiculous. De-escalation by the executive to leave peaceful people alone in the state of Georgia. That's my message to both of you, to everybody in the state who wears a badge. Stop going after peaceful people.
Mr. Kemp, 30-second rebuttal.
Well, that's simply not true. As Georgians know, I have followed the laws and the Constitution of this state. And I ran after going after criminal street gangs because I knew there was an issue in our state when other people wouldn't even talk about it and the media wouldn't acknowledge it. And you look at the amount of fentanyl that's coming across the southern border because of bad border policies from this administration. Every governor in the country is having to deal with that. So yes, I'm going to go after bad people that are selling bad drugs and killing our children and our other citizens.
The free market way to do that would be to allow cannabis and psilocybin to handle the mental health issues.
Okay, well, I wasn't talking about cannabis. I was talking about deadly fentanyl.
Stop busting them then.
Gentlemen, we're going to move on. That concludes our second round. For those just joining us, this is the
I hate when the
general
libertarian
election
candidate
debate
just
between
sucks.
Candidates for governor.
It's just
We will
like,
now go
it doesn't
back
represent
to the panel to ask questions
ideology.
to the
It just
candidate
makes
of
them
their
look so
choice until we
stupid.
run out of time. As a point of
Word of the day
moderator
is
privilege,
racist?
I may
Okay, I
also
like that.
ask questions of the candidates, and I will determine when a rebuttal
white
is
supremacists.
appropriate. And I'm going to use that moderator privilege right away to ask some education questions. Mr. Kemp, if reelected, you've said you'll push for $65 million dedicated to fighting pandemic learning loss, hiring more counselors, and recruiting teachers to fill shortages. How do you respond to those who say you should have prioritized those academic-related issues over laws dealing with divisive concepts, parental laws, and obscene books in the past legislative session? Even those who were pushing for those laws in the end say they don't have much teeth.
Well, look, we have been pushing for those things. You can talk to school superintendents around the state. We have worked with them really over the last year and a half, 2 years on learning loss. We've been working with our superintendents and other education groups. We've passed 2 different pieces of legislation dealing with the teacher pipeline, which is getting more teachers into the system. Our plan is working with higher education, including our HBCUs and others, to make sure we're getting more of the right people and more of them in the classroom to help mentor our children. This is really just the next step in the process. We are funding K through 12 education in this state more than we ever have per pupil, ever. And that's coming off a recession during the middle of a global pandemic. This includes my promised teacher pay raise of $5,000.
For real, it's more like open-air drug use.
Despite having to deal with 2 years of a global pandemic and a recession. So I think it's incredible what we've been doing, but make no mistake, we have more work to do, and I'm committed to doing that.
Thank you. Shane Hazel, would you tell us your education plan?
Yeah, it's to put it in the hands of the private sector. The government education system that came from Prussia in the 1700s has obviously failed Americans. We don't understand economics, we don't understand our civil culture, we don't understand a whole lot about what goes on behind the scenes in politics. The idea that we want to privatize everything as libertarians is good for education. Think about Walmart having a monopoly on force to teach your children. It's insane. The idea that we do this with a government has side effects. We see them on a daily basis. We need to get government out of education. We need to allow parents to seek out the best education for their kids. And we also believe that they have the responsibility to do so. So to help fix this nation, start here in Georgia, is get the government and the admin out of the classroom and get it out of our lives.
Thank you. Ms. Abrams, in education, you propose a boost in teachers' pay, more state-paid preschool slots for lower-income children and their families, and more. If you win the governor's race, you'll likely have Republican majorities in both chambers. Given what we know about partisan divisions, how will you get your education proposals passed and funded?
So let's begin with what my proposals are. Georgia is sitting on a $6.6 billion surplus. That's money that we have after we've paid every bill, after we've put 15% aside for a rainy day fund.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
For increases in population. And I want to invest it in our children and in our families, beginning with making certain that we have pre-K slots. We have 4-year-olds on a waiting list. I've never met a 4-year-old who waits to turn 5. But we can solve that problem with the money we have right now. We can also give an $11,000 pay raise to our teachers instead of a $5,000 pay raise on layaway. We can make certain that we are increasing access to the pipeline.
Just throw money in it, it fixes everything.
In the pipeline because they can't make enough money to take care of themselves and their families. And that is why under this governor, we have a 67% retention rate. Any other CEO who lost more than 30% of their workforce would be fired. And that is why my plan is to use the resources we have today to plan for today and tomorrow. We've got the money, and we have economists in Georgia and national economists who looked at my plan, and they say it works. Check my plan out at StaceyAbrams.com. Check my math. It works.
Thank you. 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'd just
And
like
she's
to
been
let
preparing
people know,
for this.
Look, my plan is to use the revenue that we have because we've been open. If
Sensor
Stacey
Mom, what
Abrams
up?
had been your governor over the last 4 years, you wouldn't have that excess revenue because she wanted the state to stay locked down and criticize me when I opened it back up. We have, in fact, been using this revenue, and will do so in the future, to do another income tax refund and put the money back in your pocket. We're also going to do a property tax relief grant, one time, that helps you with rising property values and rising property taxes that the counties are not rolling back.
Thank you very much.
If I may respond, because
30 seconds.
This is going to go back and forth between the Democrats and the
Ms.
Republicans.
My
They
impression
keep
of
on
Stacey.
each other. I'm going to
We've
say
got to
this as a
move on.
homeschooler,
Ms. Abrams,
property
30
tax
seconds.
For
Mr. Hazel, we've got to move on.
We're not going to be excluded from this.
I'm not excluding you, but he did refer to her, so we are going to have her speak first.
You're going to take money and property from people that don't even attend your schools because they don't
Mr.
agree
Hazel,
with them.
we want to move on. Ms. Abrams?
I want to point out 3 things that were inaccurate. One, I urged caution because any leader should privilege the lives of those they serve. 38,000 people died in Georgia. We have one county where 1 in every 100 Hancock County residents perished under this governor. And so, yes, I urged caution. But I also urge good math. We have the money in our accounts to do what is right. Money not delivered by Brian Kemp, money delivered by federal Democrats, and money that is delivered by hardworking Georgians who have generated the surplus, and they deserve investments in their lives.
I need to make myself large enough to block her.
Hearing about
2 words were
50,000
fooked.
people are getting $500 million. The rest of us are going to see $193.
Thank you.
That is not a good return on investment.
Shane Hazel, 30 seconds, please.
It's
and then we have
stolen money.
to move on.
All of it's stolen money from people who have property. The fact that we have property tax in America has got to be one of the most un-American things I've ever heard of. There are a lot of us at homeschool because we don't believe in the government school system, and we are still fleeced every year to the tune of thousands and thousands of dollars to pay for a broken school system that we don't agree with. That's both of you guys.
Well, Don, with all due respect, Ms. Abrams called me out again.
All right.
About these
30 seconds, and then we really are going to move on.
But the federal money that we're able to use right now and spend is because our state was open, and we didn't have to use this federal money to backfill state revenues, which has put us in an incredible position to move forward in our state.
Mr. Kemp, we're one of several states that have had the same exact experience.
It is
disingenuous.
State government
to claim
and not having
done
a
this on your
conversation.
own.
We're going to move on.
It's the people's
We're-
money.
We're going to move on, gentlemen, and Ms. Abrams. Greg Bluestein, you have the next question.
Ms. Abrams, I'm going to go back to one of Donna's
Yeah, he's the
underlying questions, which is
libertarian
the
guy
how
in the
issue.
middle.
You've staked out dozens of policy proposals that would have to win approval from lawmakers, including Medicaid expansion, including several of the proposals you outlined here today. But it's highly likely the legislature will remain in Republican control. How are you going to win approval of these measures when in the face of staunch Republican opposition?
Well, I don't actually
Old
believe there's
Saucy, what up?
Republican opposition. I served in the legislature for 11 years, and every day during my tenure, I worked across the aisle to get good done. They put it in my title. I was minority leader, meaning I couldn't win unless I could work with others. That is why I'm the only person I know of who got an A rating from the Georgia Chamber of Commerce and the Friend of Labor Award for the same work in the same year. The work that I do is working with people to find out how we get solutions. Medicaid expansion is a perfect example. We have 19 hospitals at risk of closure, joining the 6 hospitals that have closed under this governor. We are sending a Brinks truck of $3.5 billion of our money to Kentucky, to Louisiana, to Ohio, because this governor will not accept the money. And the resources that we need in our state will come to our state when we have leaders willing to work across the aisle to bring our money home. But it's more important than that.
Yeah,
It's
no
not
one
how
works
do we take
across
care
the
of our
aisle more than
families?
her.
How do we make certain that we're addressing high housing prices? How do we tackle the issue of gun violence? How do we support our freedoms and protect our people? And we need a governor
Stacey's
who can do
neck
the
is
math,
smaller
but also
than
do the
Feder-
morality of making sure we take care of every single Georgian.
Thank you, Ms. Abrams. Governor Kemp, you have 30 seconds.
Well, I would just say that one way we deal with
I don't
gun
think it's an
violence is to
accomplishment,
take
no.
the bad people that are doing the shootings and lock them up and not in cash bail like Ms. Abrams wants to do. But listen, she's also said that the silver bullet on health care is Medicaid expansion, adding 650,000 people. Well, there's been 600,000
I don't know what she
people
means by money.
added to the Medicaid rolls since I become governor. And the problem is it's a broken government program that she wants the government decide your health care that will also kick 200,000 private citizens off their private sector health care.
Thank you.
If I may respond.
30-second rebuttal.
just
Wait,
talk about
he
this
called
just
her
for a
name.
second.
Ms. Abrams,
comes the
you have a
libertarian.
30-second rebuttal.
Number one, Medicaid expansion will allow 500,000 Georgians who are working people to get access to health care. That is a good thing in a state where we have people dying every day from cancer, from
Yes,
issues
people
with
die
health-
every day.
issues with diabetes, issues with heart disease.
Whoa,
But
diabetes.
Number two, the 600,000 people that he references who are on Medicaid, they are put there because of the public health emergency. And when that ends, they will lose health care, which will add more people who are on the streets unable to get health care. Under this
Is
governor,
that
we've
toothpaste
lost
on her
6
neck?
hospitals. We have ambulance wait times that are excessive, and our
Thank you very
people
much.
need
I would
relief, and
like
they
to
need
weigh
their
in.
money
Thank you.
back.
I would like to weigh in
We
as a
want
veteran
to
here.
give our panelists
Yeah.
a chance to ask more
But
questions. So,
we're just going
Chuck
back and
Williams,
forth.
it is your
We're just
turn
going
to
back
ask a
and forth.
question, Mr.
It's insane.
Governor, the Democrats have controlled the U.S. Senate for 2 years because Georgia shifted from 2 Republicans to 2 Democrats in January of 2021. One of those seats was held by Kelly Loeffler, a person you appointed to that post. She then lost to
It's
Senator
frosting
Warnock.
around her neck.
Do you wish you had made a different choice when you selected Kelly Loeffler?
Well, no, not at all.
It just broke down again. Dude, their stream is so trash. Whoa, I just messed up my own. Their stream is absolute trash. It just, what is going on? Look, it's not me. Look, it's their own computer. Like, what the frick, dude? Our politics is trash. Our political system's so freaking messed up, man. What is going on? Oh no, PBS is censoring it. It's the pearl necklace. Look, they're still trying to fix it. What is going on? There's an error. We're sorry. There's an error on the live stream. Is there a chat going on? No, chat is disabled. Look, whoever is in charge of it isn't like updating it. Let me see if I can find it. God, this is so trash, dude. That should have been the part of the game, is how many times is their own live feed gonna cut out? I mean, what? How is this? This is depressing. It's just like, who's doing their debate again? Atlanta Press Club. So put it up with them. It's not me, okay? Polls plug. You typically needed an OF account to have that. What's OF? I'm about to start one of those. It was white supremacy. It would be without it. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna see if I can find it. No, that's not it. I can't believe their thing cut out. What if you? Okay, let's see if I can find it on this website.
Government, and then says limit yourself. Is he truly the impractical?
This is why you trust me.
The idea that
you know what I mean, because I found it.
Biggest problem that we have
it's not,
in Georgia.
Their live stream keeps cutting out.
Understand economics. These guys don't understand economics from Republicans or Democrats, or else we wouldn't be in the hole that we're in.
This is why I'm the best.
In terms of trillions and trillions of dollars.
Oh, Saucy, I understand.
What we need to do is get back to basics. Austrian economics.
We don't have free press.
Get rid of this
cancer
that has invaded every
Thanks for joining us,
that we have through a fiat currency system, creating freedom.
You don't get to hear the debate. I know.
In Georgia is the default position. Not more government, not more programs, not more policies, not more point at the barrel of a gun, force and coercion. It is freedom.
All right. Brian Kemp,
will
your
this
answer
cut
to the
out
question.
again?
Well, I'll first, since I didn't get a
no debate for you
after being called out, would just let Jordans know again that my record's being attacked because Miss Abrams doesn't want to talk about her own record.
Thanks
for
real.
Look at what the state of Georgia and our First Lady Marty Kemp has done to raise the awareness on ending human trafficking, going after the perpetrators and supporting the victim, as well as us working with the General Assembly to give Medicaid benefits to birthing mothers.
This is kind of like a power grid.
After having that child and other things, shows you our state that we value life and that we care. But in the future, my focus is going to be what it was when I opened the debate, and that is helping you fight through 40-year high inflation and disastrous policies in Washington, D.C. I would remind you that Stacey Abrams campaigned to be Joe Biden's running mate. She supports these policies that have raised taxes on hardworking Americans and Georgians when they promised they would not. We're working with the General Assembly to help you fight through that by suspending the gas tax and giving your money back
Thank you
put
very
in your
much.
pocket.
Thank you very much. Greg, your next question.
Governor, I want to stay with you and talk about something that just came up in the last exchange a little bit. Earlier today, you rolled out a new public safety plan that offers a crackdown, promotes a crackdown on criminal offenses. What it doesn't specifically address is gun violence. Your critics say that your permissive gun policies will only lead to more crime. What do you propose you will do in a second term if you're reelected to address gun-related crimes?
Well, again, we're going after the people that are doing these gun-related crimes. I mean, and that's what we're doing, going after street gangs in this regard. You know, during the pandemic, when I was talking to people about how we were responding and what we were doing,
they always ignore the
I was hearing
libertarian.
from educators and athletic directors and other people saying,
he's been cringy at some points. Some points have been good.
Classroom, because we're losing them. We're going to lose them a decade of children because these kids that we're recruiting when they're 13, 14, 15 years old to be on the ball field or be in the band or be on the robotics team or what have you, extracurricular activity, they're being recruited by street gangs because they're not in the classroom. So those are the kind of things that we are focused on to make sure that these kids are under the right environment. And my new public safety plan is stiffening penalties.
It isn't the
gang
most fiery
members
debate.
that are recruiting our children. And I believe that most Georgians support that. And I'm committed to
John
working
Scott,
with
what's
all
up,
law
man?
enforcement to make a dent.
You're never voting again?
Thank you. Chuck Williams.
This is for
would
Governor
vote.
Kemp and
Just
Ms.
vote.
Abrams. Columbus, Macon, Atlanta, and other communities have benefited from a Georgia State Patrol task force that has helped augment police coverage in those cities and some others over the last year.
How dare you say that, Papa,
What
about
can
the
be
libertarian?
done to make sure that local agencies that are short on officers can handle these policing duties without having to rely on the state? Ms. Abrams?
Well, you actually asked Mr. Kemp
I said for both. Okay,
Yeah, it's for both.
Governor.
Yeah, look, I'm glad that answered that question. The crime suppressing unit that I asked Colonel Wright to put together during civil unrest when I grew tired of local elected political leaders
Depends
that
on the
wouldn't let their
libertarian.
local law enforcement go after dangerous people during civil unrest, that had no chase policies, where street racers and street gangs are terrorizing our citizens. I told Colonel Wright,
Old Saucy says Stacey Abrams doesn't care about anything unless it's edible. On Rumble.
That's why the State Patrol, GBI, Department of Natural Resources, game wardens, working with
I have a
Fulton
fat
County
heart too,
Sheriff,
man.
who's helped us with jail facilities, the Atlanta Police Department. We went and put a plan together to start going after street racers and going after violent criminals and have more boots on the ground. We've done the same thing in Columbus. We've done it in Macon. We've done it in Savannah, and we'll do it wherever we're needed. This is not our job. We're using funds from the governor's emergency fund to help pay for these dollars, and thankfully the General Assembly supports that because we've been in the fight when others were not.
Thank you. Ms. Abrams?
Street gangs did not shoot 6 Asian women going into a gun store, getting a
white
weapon,
supremacy.
and murdering women
Here we
in
go.
less than an hour. Street gangs aren't the reason people are getting shot in grocery stores and in parking lots and in schools. Street gangs are one part of the problem, but we have a governor who has weakened gun laws across this state, flooded our streets with guns by letting dangerous people get access to those weapons. Georgia does not have a waiting period. We do not have universal background checks. And one of the few permits that we had that was helping keep us safe stopped 5,000 people who should not have had weapons from getting them, got weakened by this governor with his criminal carry law. As the next governor, my intention would be to actually give the people who do 90% of law enforcement the support they need. We know that they have asked for at least $136 million so they can recruit and retain officers. I am the only candidate who's put in place a plan for at least $25 million in grants, not loans, to go to these local law enforcement officers so they can recruit and retain officers so that their officers aren't working 2 or 3 jobs simply to make ends meet.
Thank you. Before your rebuttal, Governor Kemp, Shane Hazel, you may respond to this question.
You keep going
Libertarian.
back to
Here we go.
Stacey, and I think it's going to be your undoing here in Georgia. Georgia, we're going to have less and less gun laws, whether it's under Republicans or Libertarians.
Get 'em, Papa.
Libertarians don't believe in any gun laws. We believe that you know how to best protect you and your property. And the biggest mass murderer in history is government. It's not private citizens. Most private citizens, like I said before, go throughout their day without doing any harm to anybody. However, the people in the government with all of the guns still go after people with a badge when they shouldn't have to. In Holly Springs, Georgia, I introduced the Helios Initiative, where we got rid of civil asset forfeiture. It was a one-page bill through decentralization, nullification, using the Constitution that made the officers in Holly Springs safer because they don't have to go out there and they don't have to harass people of color while driving while black. They don't have to go out there and look for drugs. They don't have to go out there and do any of these things because civil asset forfeiture is also the government stealing more than criminals, hardened criminals, from anybody and everybody in the state of Georgia.
Thank you. Governor Kemp, 30 seconds.
Well, thank you. I would just let people at home know the largest, fastest growing segment of the population that's buying handguns and firearms is African Americans and females. You know why? Because the criminals are the only ones that do have the guns. You have local governments that are holding up concealed weapon permits that are keeping law-abiding citizens from being able to simply use their Second Amendment right to protect themselves and their property and their families. I will certainly support that.
Decentralization is the way. Yes, sir.
May I respond?
Yes, 30 seconds.
Let's be clear. I believe that we can protect the Second Amendment and protect second graders at the exact same time. That means that, yes, more people are buying guns, but that's because they think that's the only way to protect themselves because guns have flooded our streets. These are communities that want to be safe. They don't want to have to carry weapons. I know how to shoot. My great-grandmother taught me. But I know that the person who is most responsible is the person who holds the weapon. And that is why I will quote Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. And because of the criminal carry law that Brian Kemp signed into law, there is no longer a background check for those who have concealed carry permits. That makes all of us less safe.
How are you going to take the guns?
Don, if I could respond.
How is she going to take the guns? That's a great
really
question.
want to move on.
Well, there is a federal background check. There's a federal background check on every individual that buys a firearm in the United States of America.
Which shouldn't exist either.
That is not true.
Well, the point,
Mr. Kemp, that's not true.
I understand the point you're making, but the point is, when you buy a firearm, you get a background check.
Mr.
And
Kemp,
none of the laws changed.
Mr. Kemp, if you purchase a weapon in Georgia through a gun sale or a private sale, through a gun show or a private sale, you're not subject to that.
We're going to have to move on.
I interrupted you tonight.
I apologize.
Candidates, we have to move on. I'm going to allow Jennifer to ask What's going to be the final question in this round?
A study recently showed frustration among our nation's teachers with political interference into education, with issues like COVID-19 and critical race theory presenting additional challenges to a profession that's already dealing with low pay, falling interest, and people leaving. What would you do specifically as governor to recruit,
Please.
retain, and empower educators for
Gun
schools
is the
across
only way
state
to
of
protect
Georgia for
yourself.
each of you?
There you go.
Should I?
All right, we'll start with you, Ms. Abrams.
And let me again apologize to Mr. Kemp for interrupting. This is a very important topic to me, and I apologize for my outburst. I will say that when it comes to education, we know teachers are leaving the workforce. We have a 67% retention rate, but 70% of our teachers have said they would not recommend teaching to their colleagues. That is because of low pay, because of overregulation, because of high stress, and because they believe that they are being told to teach to a curriculum that does not reflect the values and needs of our students. When a teacher is told that you have to lie to a child, which is what happened with the divisive language, the divisive concepts legislation, teachers are not being able to teach
Is
the whole
Mr. Libertarian
history of our
married or not?
students.
I don't know.
They're not able to tell their children what they need to know. As the next governor of Georgia, I will repeal those laws, I will increase pay, and I will make certain that all of our teachers can start and continue through their time well paid and well protected and well supported by the government.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so only 45 seconds. So, Brian Kemp.
Well, I would just say this is exactly why I did the $5,000 teacher pay raise that I ran on in 2018. We've also done a Parents' Bill of Rights to have parents fully engaged with their schools to make sure that they know what's happening in their kids. Quite honestly, people are tired of their kids being indoctrinated in the classroom. But we've also worked with our educators on these pieces of legislation to make sure that they make good common sense. But I would also tell you that people are tired of these issues like not having fairness in girls' sports and other things. And quite honestly, it's woken a lot of people up. So we got to continue to have good conversations like we've done with our
I want the
teacher
libertarian men to hold
pipeline
me tight, too.
legislation, like we're doing with helping 9,000 parapros get fully certified to be in the classroom.
Thank you
helping our
very
kids.
much. Shane Hazel, you get 45
The next debate
seconds.
is starting
Your
soon,
question
by the way.
raises a lot of interesting
I will find
points.
it.
A lot of these teachers, like my own wife, has left the profession of teaching to homeschool, to go to private school, to do something outside of this narrative where admin from the federal government and the state government is forcing them to teach things they don't want to teach to test. They can't stand the administration who makes six figures. It is bloated. It is absolutely gotten out of control. We
People
need
just
to
3D print
nullify
guns now?
property
Yeah,
tax. We need
100%.
to let people get out of the system.
It's
We need
over
to
once that
allow
happens.
the private sector to work. Because before education was put under the thumb of government here, we had some of the brightest, most well-read people in the entire world.
Well-read.
And that's what we need to bring back.
All right, thank you very much. We are running out of time, so that is all the time we have for questions. Each candidate will now have
Plenty of
40
love to go
seconds
around.
for a closing
Okay,
statement.
here we go.
And Brian
All right, I
Kemp,
won't talk
you get
during
the first
this.
closing statement.
Well, first of all, let me thank the Atlanta Press Club for having us. When I ran for governor in 2018, I promised to put hard-working Georgians first ahead of the status quo and the politically correct. I said shortly after being sworn in, I would work hard as your governor every single day for all Georgians, whether you voted for me or not. I'm so optimistic about the future of our state. The lowest unemployment rate in the history of the state, the most people working, and economic opportunity in all parts of our state, no matter your zip code or neighborhood. Stacey Abrams said Georgia's the worst state in the country to live. Well, Marty, the girls, and I disagree. We think Georgia's the greatest state in the country to live, work, and raise our children, and that's why I'm asking for your vote and support to keep it that way. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. Stacey Abrams, 40 seconds.
I, too, want to thank everyone tonight for your support. And I want to point out that Brian Kemp did make promises. He promised to keep us safe, but crime has gone up. He promised to protect us, and yet he's attacked our freedoms. He has promised to take care of our families, and yet the rising prices in Georgia are rising because he refuses to expand Medicaid, because he refuses to tackle the affordable housing crisis that we have, and he's sitting on $400 million of our money that he will not spend to keep us under roofs and in our homes. As the next governor, I want us to have more money in our pockets, more protections in our lives, more freedoms in our days, and more opportunity in our communities. I see all of Georgia, and as the next governor, it would be my intention to serve all of Georgia. I encourage you to go to my website, StaceyAbrams.com, and please make a plan to vote, and know that I'm asking you for your vote tonight.
Thank you. Shane Hazel, you get the final 40-second
Wow, libertarian. Final.
Georgia, you are essential. We are in changing times. Technology, money, politics are all changing incredibly fast. As humans, our superpower is our ability to adapt to a changing world. This power to adapt, our passion and genius is unleashed when it is free. Free from tax, free from government, and there are lockdowns, free from government mandates,
crazy.
and free from force and coercion. You know best how to adapt and run your life.
Ohio's the worst
and that is
state.
your right to do so. It is time peaceful people were free to take on the challenges we face. Our message to the government is simple. It's time to leave peaceful people alone. If you believe the government is so damn essential,
We have to go. I'm
stop
sorry.
robbing us at the
Thank
point
you.
of a gun and compete.
That concludes our debate. We'd like to remind voters that Election Day is Tuesday, November 8th, and early voting has already begun. Our thanks to the candidates and to our panel of journalists. We'd also like to thank the Atlanta Press Club for arranging today's debate. For more information about the debates they will host this election season,
All right, I'm gonna find the next debate, guys.
AtlantaPressClub.org/debates. I'm Donna Lowry.
Hopefully the next debate won't be as trash. All right. Also, the poll is ending. We had Kemp being projected to win the debate versus Stacey Abrams, 67% to 33%. I'm going to end that poll. New poll. Who do you think won? Who do you think won? Libertarian, hot guy, Stacey, and Kemp. Who do you think won in the YouTube chats? Now I'm going to find the next video. Utah Debate Commission. All right, we'll find it. Please get in the chat. Let me know who you thought won. Libertarian man won. Hot guy on the way. Stephanie, thanks for laughing. Utah Senate debate. Let me find this. Chords, no winner in that. Chords on Rumble says no winner on that debate. I totally agree. That was like such a debate. I didn't see any winners. Kemp looked kind of weak and tired. Stacey obviously hit all her talking points she wanted to say, but it wasn't like that fantastic of a debate. All right, I found the debate. All right, cool. I do not want to play the Utah national anthem again. That was like the most cringy national anthem ever. All right, we have hot guy winning the debate. Hot guy won my heart, says Papa. Me too. Georgia on my mind. Georgia on my mind is such a great state anthem. Old Saucy on Rumble says it was just a big word salad. I know. It really was a big word salad, and it just didn't seem like anybody was prepared for anything that was going on with that debate, except for they came in with all their pre-scheduled answers for everything, you know. I'm glad I found this debate. I'm gonna look up two different platforms for this debate, just in case it's just like the last one. Me too. Blah 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 blah. All right, let's see. So I feel like Utah will have it going on. That Georgia debate, I can't believe how many times that cut out. Again, that wasn't me that cut it out. It was them. Old Saucy says Stacey was the big part. All right, we have 83% for hot guy and Kemp. All right, new poll. Who do you guys think? Who will win the Utah debate? Will it be Mike Lee, or what's his face? Evan McMullin. It's me, Evan McMullin. New debate. All right. Hopefully we'll have a libertarian hot guy. PBS killed it. I know. If there is any positive takeaway, is that we now have a concrete proof that Stacey Abrams is a reptile. She did kind of have an alien vibe about her, just like, I want your vote this upcoming election. I can't even look straight in my camera. I want your vote this upcoming election. Oh, it was on Star Trek. Mormon or Mormon. I don't think you could be anything other than a Mormon running in Utah. I think it's like against the Constitution of the state constitution. Choices are endless. Old Sasia and Rumble says she's a lizard person 100%. Brian Kemp, man, low energy. Brian Kemp was like Abbott, man. There's just two low energy Republicans. That's when you know you're getting in a state. It's like the Democrats in like Democratic states, like.
Welcome from the campus of Utah Valley University in Orem.
It's starting.
The Utah Debate Commission welcomes you to the Senate Candidates Debate.
No one is getting my vote. But I was gonna. Hey, thanks for the subscription. But I was saying it's just like the Democrats in like New York and California, they're lazy. It's same with like Republicans in like very southern states. They just get lazy.
Good evening. And
hey, Andre, what up?
United States Senate. I'm Doug Wright from KSL Radio and Television.
You would think that would be
it's
true.
It's my pleasure to moderate tonight's exchange, which is sponsored by the Utah Debate Commission, an organization dedicated to educating voters and
Nobody for President
encouraging
New Hampshire?
the civil exchange of ideas.
All right, I don't want to listen to this guy. I'll wait for the debate to actually start.
And independent candidate Evan McMullin.
Microwave rice.
The candidates will be answering my questions as
Exact.
well as those from a
100%, Andre.
panel of journalists and from students. And you're welcome to participate also.
If we all stop
you're
voting,
watching
they don't
or
have our
listening
consent.
live,
Hey,
you can
there's a
send your
thought.
reaction and
I
your
don't think that'll ever
questions
happen,
on
though.
social media to the hashtag UTDebates.
She begged
I'll
for money
fold
in her
as
closing
many
argument.
those
Of course she did.
questions as the time will allow tonight. The
like a
format
good
for
Democrat.
this debate is as follows.
She's all about her
Each
money.
candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to the questions, along with the opportunity for 30 seconds of rebuttal time if necessary. At my discretion, I may pose
Andre,
a
I ain't gonna
follow-up
read that up,
question to
dude.
some of the responses we get. A random drawing held prior to the debate determined that Mr. McMullin will get the initial response to the first question tonight. We will then alternate the remaining questions throughout the debate. And let's get going this evening.
Oh, come on.
Gentlemen,
Neither of
thank
these
you
guys
so
are
much.
hot. I'm sorry, Papa.
This one was submitted to us. The purpose of government is the topic here, and many Utahns would probably say, if asked, that they support states' rights and that is very important. But ultimately, they want the federal government to do good things with the money we send back to Washington. If elected, what
microphone
one
is
good
terrible.
thing would you really focus on, would you do to help the federal government bring something good to Utah? And this goes to Mr. McMullin first.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. And I want to recognize my wonderful wife, Emily, who's here with us tonight. And our 5 kids have been a tremendous support to me over the past this year-long campaign. Look, I think tonight we're going to hear 2 very different visions for representing Utah in the U.S. Senate. My opponent, Senator Lee, believes that the world should be seen through a prism of partisanship, that it's always Republicans versus Democrats. It's always us versus them. These are the broken politics of Washington. He'll tell us they can't be changed. But
Like
I'm here to
McMahon
say
vibes?
it doesn't have to be this way. I'm running to represent and to offer an alternative that I believe is more consistent with the values and interests of our state. I know that we as Utahns and Americans have far more in common than we do in difference, and that we can overcome problems by finding common ground together. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican.
Whoa, look where
I'm
he's
running as
standing.
an independent because I think it's time to
Interesting.
start putting Utah first. It's time to start standing up to the broken politics of party bosses in Washington, special interest groups, and extremist factions who have far too much influence. I'm not going to Washington, if we prevail, to be a bootlicker for Donald Trump or Joe Biden. And that's a commitment I've made to putting Utah first. Only by standing up to our broken politics can we solve problems like inflation and getting our reckless spending under control. I'm committed to that.
Senator Lee, the response from you, please.
Thank you, Doug. Thanks for moderating this tonight. Thanks to the Utah Debate Commission and for UVU for hosting us. Grateful to be joined tonight by my wife, Sharon, and 2 of our 3 children. Our third is in Kentucky. He's joining us virtually, and I've got a lot of my siblings, my mom and my stepfather here as well. You raise an important question about the purpose of government. The purpose of government is fundamentally to protect life, liberty, and property. More to the point, the purpose of the federal government, the government we'll be discussing tonight, is specific. It's limited. The federal government has become too big and too expensive because it was doing too many things for too long that it was never intended or designed to do. The runaway inflation that we've seen in recent months, with the average Utah family having to shell out an additional $949 every single month for their basic living expenses, is entirely attributable to Washington, D.C. having lost scope of its purpose. And because of the runaway inflation brought about by Joe Biden and the Democratic Congress. We need to turn this around. I've learned a few things over the years about how to unravel it. I'd welcome the opportunity to continue doing that. And with that, I'll be asking for your vote at the end of the
Finally,
day.
they fixed the mics.
If I might follow up, because again, the question was, what is the one
He is Ed McMahon. Good call.
that you would help the federal government specifically do for Utah? And if we might just very quickly get to that one thing. Is there a passion? Is there something you've noticed in your many, many conversations with Utahns throughout our state? What is that one thing you'd work with the federal government
he is
to
an
bring
independent
to Utah?
Democrat.
And
McMullin.
Senator Lee, we'll go to you first.
Stop excessive federal spending. As I travel the state from one end to the other,
we have asked our audience, and if you will forgive me a little chastisement, so we give plenty of time, we don't defocus our candidates. We have asked, and our audience agreed, to remain silent. And so I'm going to hold you to that.
as I've traveled the state from one end to the other, as I've heard from a single mom in Orem raising 3 children, who is already working 2 jobs to support her kids and now has to take on a 3rd job to cover the Biden inflation. She and countless others like her have asked me to stop runaway federal spending. Joe Biden, over the last 2 years, has had a rubber stamp Democratic-controlled Congress. They've done everything he's asked them to do, and he's asked them to basically print money. We brought in $4 trillion last year. We spent almost $7 billion.
That's kind of stupid, no clap rules.
We effectively printed $3 trillion. That's resulted in too many dollars chasing too few goods. That's the very definition of inflation. As the famed Nobel Prize-winning economist Milton Friedman explained, in the United States of America, there's only one cause of inflation.
Milton Friedman.
It's excessive spending by Congress. I will continue to fight every day to rein that in. We need a Republican-controlled Senate to do that.
Mr. McMullin.
Well, look, I think maybe this is something that Senator
LOL.
Lee and I agree on, at least in part. I also agree that the Biden administration is guilty of
We need an
reckless
alternate
spending.
debate where
They were
you can
warned by
heckle?
both
Yes.
Democratic and Republican economists not to put in place the $1.9 trillion spending package during the pandemic that has contributed heavily to inflation in our country. Senator Lee, I'm glad you've stood up to that, at least in rhetoric. But the reality is we need to represent people. We need to send people to Washington who are willing to stand up
where's he
both
going?
to Republicans and Democrats in the White House who are guilty of reckless spending, because the administration before Joe Biden, Donald Trump's, was guilty of the same. And frankly, no, Senator, I'm not quite finished.
100% old sausage.
During your time in the U.S. Senate, when you were elected, the U.S. debt was about $12 or $13 trillion, Senator Lee. Now it's almost triple that. It's well over $31 trillion. I think our difference is in approach. I know that the only time we've ever gotten our fiscal house in order is when Republicans and Democrats have worked together. Senator Lee refuses to do that, and those are his broken politics.
Senator Lee, a quick 30-second rebuttal.
To suggest that I'm beholden to either party, that I've been a bootlicker for either party, is folly, and it's contradicted by the plain facts. Look, no member of the Republican Senate Conference voted independently during the Trump administration than I did. Only 2 senators, Susan Collins and Rand Paul, voted less with President Trump than I did. I have stood against my party time and time again to oppose reckless spending. I will do it again and again and again. We need people to say no, because when Washington only wants to spend money, they're spending it at your expense. They're making you less powerful. They're making you more poor. That must stop.
We want to get to a specific issue that has been submitted to the Debate Commission.
Papa, you're
One
crazy.
is to talk more about the federal government and its ruling in the case West Virginia versus EPA. The Supreme Court said that the EPA didn't have the authority to enforce coal emissions, and that the authority should come from a law yet to be created in Congress. Do you think this is the most effective system of government? And can Congress take on this task? And should they take on this task and pass even more very specific and granular laws? And we go to Mr. McMullin for this.
Well, look, I do think there's a role for the federal government in helping ensure that we have clean air and sufficient water. I certainly think that's true. But our solutions are going to come more at the federal level or at the state level. You know, there's no way for Washington to tell us totally how we can keep our air clean and ensure that we have sufficient water. There is a role for the federal government to play, certainly, but there's an important role for the states as well. And I think it's important that the federal government supports state efforts rather than dictate to them what those efforts
Agencies are not
should be.
lawmakers. Amen.
Senator Lee.
I don't disagree with the comment just made by my opponent. States can do better. We know our topography, our demographics, our geography, our specific needs better than any bureaucrat in Washington ever could. As to West Virginia versus EPA, the Supreme Court emphatically got that case right. Look, what Congress has been passing as legislation for decades, sadly under the leadership of Republican and
These
Democratic
debates drive
Congresses and
peace
White
and love it all
Houses
to the
alike.
next. All right, John, I appreciate
It's
you,
been
man.
platitudes more than laws. In many
Tomorrow's show will
instances,
be
they'll
fun.
pass a law that will say we shall have good law in the area of clean air, and we hereby delegate to the EPA the power to decide what clean air is and to punish polluters. In West Virginia versus EPA, the Supreme Court said, look, EPA has exercised that authority so broadly so as to shut down certain sources of electric power in this country. Congress cannot possibly be deemed to have voluntarily
More word salad getting hard to
handed
chew.
that
It certainly
authority
seems
over
like
to
it.
EPA. This is the tip of the iceberg of what needs to change. The very first clause of the first section of the first article of the Constitution says that all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States. That power has been handed over, lock, stock, and barrel, to unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats. This is why we need a Republican Congress to enact the REINS Act that would put the power back in your hands and away from the unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats.
We appreciate your responses, and I'm not seeing the need for a rebuttal on that one. In all of my experience with debates and in talking with the folks from the Utah Debate Commission, they too have never seen anything quite like this, where so many people have contacted us as a commission, me as the moderator, them as individuals, asking a series of questions that they feel they deserve very straight, specific answers to. We've broken it down to 4 things, and hopefully we can address this relatively quickly. In the first part of this, we've broken it into 4 questions. But this one is a very basic one that will go to the senator. Did Joe Biden fairly, that's the important word, did Joe Biden fairly win the 2020 presidential election? Senator Lee.
Yes, Joe Biden is our president. He was chosen in the only election that matters, the election held by the Electoral College.
He does have a Nixon posture.
It's on that basis that I voted to certify the election results. The Electoral College cast its vote. Joe Biden won that. Now, as to whether there were errors, as to whether some states might have conducted their elections better than others, there's always room for debate and questions about that. Some people expressed concerns about the number of states using universal mail-in balloting for the first time in 2020. Unlike Utah, they hadn't tested it out. In Utah, we've got these signature verification protocols. We've got elaborate procedures for going through the voter registration rules to make sure that the wrong people who have died or moved out of state, aren't voting. In other states, there were open questions about that, about ballot harvesting and things like that. But ultimately, what matters is the Electoral College, and the Electoral College won. I would add here, it's absolutely essential that the authority to conduct elections remain in state hands, never consolidated in federal hands where the risk of corruption is great. On this, my opponent and I disagree. My opponent has expressed support for legislation backed by the Democrats called S1. S1 would consolidate excessive authority over elections in the federal government. It would do so, moreover, in a way that would virtually cobble the states in their ability to enact voter security measures like voter ID.
His cadence.
This is a bad step. We should shun it like the plague.
Mr. McMullin.
Well, I certainly think it's important that we protect voters' rights and that we protect the peaceful transfer of power, Senator Lee. But for you to talk about the importance of the Electoral College, I think is rich. I think you know exactly how important it is. And I think you knew how important it was when you sought to urge the White House that had lost an election to find fake electors to overturn the will of the people. Senator Lee, that was the most egregious betrayal of our nation's Constitution in its history by a U.S. Senator, I believe, and it will be your legacy. Senator Lee is still casting doubt.
Please.
Look,
ladies and gentlemen, you just took about 7 or 8 minutes away from the candidates. We're here to hear them.
Senator Lee, you advised spurious so-called legal efforts to mislead tens of millions of Americans that the election had been stolen. And congratulations, you succeeded. As recently as this year, and even tonight, you're still casting doubt on the legitimacy of the election. You're doing a tremendous disservice to this country, Senator Lee. You have betrayed your oath to the Constitution with this. It is and for this state, Utah, that was founded by people like my ancestors and yours, who sacrificed greatly to finally realize true freedom, for you to represent this state and to cast away, to abandon, to throw away 14 generations of American leadership, I think is a travesty.
Senator Lee, a 30-second rebuttal.
Evan, that's not true. You know that's not true. You, sir, owe me an apology. Listen.
You better apologize to me, okay? I'm serious.
In the days leading up to January 6th, when the votes were going to be open and counted, I had a job to do. There were rumors circulating suggesting that some states were considering switching out their slates of electors. If that were true, I would need to know about it. I did research on that. I made phone calls to figure out whether the rumors were true. The rumors were false.
Probably.
On that basis, I voted to
this
certify
one might get good. I hope so.
Of the election.
Senator Lee, thank you. Thank you. There are other aspects of this, but again, please, I would ask our audience, so far about 15 or 20 seconds have been taken from what our listening audience, our viewing audience.
And I'm taking some seconds right now. I'm taking it right now. I'm talking. I'm being ridiculous. Everyone shut up. Shut up. Everyone shut up. I'm sick of everyone talking. I'm talking. It's just whatever.
I'm going to put several of these aside because we're already running a little bit behind time. But I want to ask this question. How do you characterize the events that happened on January 6th at the U.S. Capitol? And we'll start with Evan McMullin on this.
January 6th drink.
It was a violent insurrection with the intention of overturning the American Republic. I think about my ancestors, again, who fought in the Revolutionary War, Senator Lee, and who fled religious persecution on the East Coast and trekked across the plains and the Rockies to achieve freedom here. I think about the men and women who I served with in the CIA, who left the warmth of their homes and the love of their families to risk their lives, not knowing if they would ever come home, in order to stop terrorists who were intent on destroying freedom in America. I think about all the men and women, the 14 generations of Americans who have sacrificed for this grand experiment in freedom.
Stop calling God to me.
They trusted you. We trusted you.
Don't make me turn this debate around.
And with that trust and with your knowledge of the Constitution, Senator Lee, you sought to find a weakness in our system. You advised the White House, find an alternative slate of electors for Trump to overturn the will of the people. That's what you said. You said that the president should listen to legal quack Sidney Powell. Please make time for her. Let her in, you told the White House chief of staff. You told the president that you were working overtime, 14 hours a day, I think you said, to unravel this for him. To keep a president who had been voted out of office according to the will of the people in power despite the will of the people. Senator Lee, it is a betrayal of the American Republic. You were there to stand up for our Constitution, but when the barbarians were at the gate, you were happy to let them in.
Senator Lee next, and we will give you an additional 11 seconds.
The barbarians were at the gate.
Okay, I think I disagree with everything my opponent just said, including the words "but" and the. It was.
I love
an
that quote.
Information-free,
Yes.
truth-free
I love when people
statement.
quote that.
That's something of a record. Look.
Yes, 150 angry
there is
rednecks overthrowing the
absolutely
government. Yeah.
nothing to the idea that I would have ever supported, ever did support a fake electors plot. Nothing. There's not a scintilla of evidence suggesting that. And yet you continue to insist that with a cavalier, reckless disregard for the truth. This is sad. This is troubling. It's also entirely consistent with your adopted political party.
Ooh,
you have
you're
sought
adopted,
for,
bro.
actively courted, and obtained the endorsement of the Democratic Party. You've raised millions of dollars from Act Blue, the database on which far-left, progressive, socialist, democratic donors can be found. And then you have, in the last quarter alone, spent $1.6 million feeding the Democratic industrial complex.
Me neither,
so
James.
It's not surprising to me that you would come here today
talks
and
like
spout
January
not only
6th
lies,
like
but
that.
lies that are
It's just
specific
so disingenuous.
to the leftist cause, lies that are specific to the Democratic Party, and lies that certainly are not applicable to me.
100% old saucy.
Yes, there were people who behaved very badly on that day. I was not one of them. I was one of the people trying to dismantle this situation, trying to stop it from happening. Because I believe in this document written by the hands of wise men raised up by God to that very purpose. I followed it, I studied it, and I defended it to a T.
We'll have 30 seconds here in a moment.
For you to suggest otherwise,
suck on this,
right in the face of truth and in the face of the Constitution. How dare you, sir?
Mr. McMullin, you have 30 seconds.
Look, Senator Lee has been doing this thing with his pocket constitution for the last several years. Senator Lee, it is not a prop.
What up,
it
Fun to
is
Fix
not
It?
a prop. Senator Lee, the Constitution is not a prop for you to wave
ZZ Top
about, and
guy
then when
died?
it's convenient for your pursuit of power, to abandon without a thought. That's what you've done with that.
Where's he
okay?
going?
If you're committed to the Constitution, then stand up for our free and fair elections. Stand up
looks
for
a
the
little
peaceful
crazy right
transfer
there.
of power. You did so. You voted to certify the election in the last moment, in the same way that someone knows a plot that isn't quite working out ought to abandon it. That's what you
Greta
did.
moment, I know.
But look, Senator Lee is retreating to a safe space. Again, these are his broken politics of right versus left, Republicans versus Democrats. Senator Lee, you know I'm not a Democrat, but you're not worried about that. You're worried about the fact that I'm an independent and that I'm building a cross-partisan coalition of Republicans, Democrats, and independents and members of third parties to replace you and to stand up to your broken politics and those of the party bosses and special interests who line your pockets. That's what I'm doing, and I know it frightens you, because if you can keep us divided, then that's how you hold on to power.
CIA
You're used
guy,
to
isn't
that.
he?
But we're building a cross-partisan coalition to replace you, Senator Lee, and it must be done.
Okay, Senator Lee, we're going to give you a 30-second rebuttal to that. I wasn't going to call that, but I think we should in this case.
This is not a prop, and I don't carry it as a prop. This is a reference manual. I carry it with me next to my heart because I refer to it daily, constantly. You'd be surprised at how often it comes in handy to have it right there. My colleagues have come to depend on it because they know I've always got one. The words matter. I've followed the words. You distort the truth, and you should be ashamed.
I mentioned that students here at Utah Valley University were going to be participating in tonight's debate.
Except for
And
clapping.
we're very pleased now to go to UVU student McKenna Briggs for the next question.
Hi, my name is McKenna Briggs. I'm an intern with Governor Herbert's Institute for Public Policy, and I'm majoring in political science. My question for you is, you've both expressed opposition to President Biden's student loan forgiveness executive order. What solutions do you have for the student loan crisis?
And this goes to Senator Lee first.
First and best thing that the federal government could do with regard to student loans is get out of the student loan business. It has no business there. Look, we have to remember how this came about, how it originated. The only reason we got in
He talks like Ray from Ghostbusters.
Because enterprising
That's a spot
Democrats
on.
during the
That's great.
debates leading up to the passage of Obamacare wanted to pay for it. They wanted a funding mechanism. They wanted a way for the federal government to borrow money at a lower interest rate,
They do
loan
always
it back
expose
out at a
themselves.
higher interest rate, milking American students all over the country and pocketing the difference to fund Obamacare. This was wrong. It was also wrong to put that much power
in the federal government, in the executive branch of government, and specifically in the president himself. So the way we deal with that is put it back in the private sector, leave the federal government out of it, and for heaven's sakes, we must never again pass legislation that can even be read as giving the president such sweeping power. He was wrong here.
Oh, Papa, 100%,
doesn't give him
man.
that power.
Carry a copy of the Constitution's emergency toilet paper by congressmen. Certainly seems like it.
Disgraceful.
They don't care about the Constitution.
Look, I think also that the federal government has played a tragic role in elevating the prices of higher education. It shouldn't cost as much as it is. It's now out of reach of many Americans, and I fear even middle-class Americans as well. It's far too expensive. I don't agree with Senator Lee that the federal government should be
100%.
entirely out of that, but it has to be more careful. The federal government has played a role in inflating higher education costs. And I'm concerned that Joe Biden's decision here has also contributed to inflation or will contribute to inflation. I believe that we should have debt forgiveness programs for those in public service like teachers and police officers,
That's depressing,
and
Papa.
those in the military and in other roles serving the country. But it should have been a more narrowly
How dare you
focused
say that,
program,
for
and
real.
he should work with Congress in
100%
order
though.
to design it and implement it. That is what I think is required. But we have got to reform our system for financing higher education, and it does mean lessening the federal government's role. I still think the federal government does have a role to play, especially for low-income students or for people who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford higher education. But it has contributed to inflation of the worst kind in higher education, and we have to reform that to bring prices down.
He's about to take a nap.
Two responses, and we mentioned that we have invited social media participants to send us their questions.
It's my question.
And this one from social media to each of the candidates: do you support continuing Social Security and Medicare? And this time we go to Mr. McMullin first.
Well, I do. I believe that Social Security and Medicare are important elements of our social fabric in America. I'll work with anybody who wants to ensure our seniors' future. I think the biggest challenge right now is our fiscal irresponsibility as a country. And I'm talking about both parties. Both parties are guilty of fiscal responsibility. And only when both parties work together can we get our fiscal house in order. But entering unnecessary wars has weakened our fiscal situation. Failing to stand up to special interest groups in our healthcare system that make us pay more for prescription drugs and for other types of healthcare than almost anyone else in the world. Spending too much on dated weapon systems from decades ago. Because we're not willing to stand up to special interest groups on that front. We should be spending more wisely. All of that recklessness is putting Social Security and Medicare at risk. I will not balance our budget on the backs of seniors.
Senator Lee.
I agree. We have to honor the promises made to America's seniors who paid into these programs for decades. We can't walk away from that. Now, look, we have seen the peril in putting this power in the federal government, which is why I've long supported the concept of allowing people over time,
you can see his shadow on the right.
People in their 20s or 30s, to designate their Social Security, their Medicare money to go into something that they control. The reason I say this is that look at what's happened over time. I've had to object on countless occasions, including once at 2 or 3 in the morning, when Congress, in the middle of the night, under color of darkness, raided the Social Security Trust Fund in order to pay for reckless runaway spending. Tragically, this was Republicans and Democrats alike. So yes, we need to honor those things. And we also need to reform them to make it more difficult for Congress to raid seniors' money.
Thank you to both of you, and we have now reached a point in the evening where the halfway point of the Senate debate featuring the Republican incumbent Mike Lee and independent challenger Evan McMullin. I'm Doug Wright from KSL Radio and Television, and again, as we already
McMullin
have,
is a little weak as a
taking
candidate.
your questions during this live broadcast.
I thought he would be better than this.
Use the hashtag
People are talking about
UT debates.
People keep talking about McMullin like he's a huge threat, but he doesn't seem
Let me
like
ask
one.
this question, and then we're going to go to one of our students again here
What
at
do I
Utah
know?
Valley
I'm not
University. Let's talk
Utah.
about inflation. It's an issue that is front
Lee brings her
and
kids to
forward
Ohio.
for everybody in the country, but here in the state of Utah, who do you feel bears
Shadow crosses vampire
most
off the
of the
list.
responsibility
Yeah, that's true.
for these higher prices? Is it the federal government, or is it large business, big corporations?
No, it's Putin's
and we
price
start with
hike.
Senator Lee this time.
In the late 1970s, the last time we saw a major raft of inflation, similar
Mari,
questions were
what up?
asked.
He's
to
not a
Milton
threat?
Friedman,
Okay.
the aforementioned Nobel
People like Glenn Beck
Prize-winning
make him seem like a
economist.
threat. He talks about him a lot.
He was
I'm just
asked,
wondering.
is it speculative investing? Is it trade unions?
Lee will take it.
International
Gotcha.
trade, what is it? And he said, in the United States of America, inflation has but one cause. It is federal spending.
Yes.
Reckless, excessive federal spending.
High energy prices.
It is Congress. It's Congress that's spent way too much. Now, it's been spending way too much for a very long time. And I've been a leading opponent of that excessive spending. But they've ratcheted it up to
Dems,
a
I'm
whole
sure,
new
want him.
level.
Gotcha.
We thought it was too much cowbell before. They gave it 10 times the cowbell. As soon as the Democrats obtained dual control of the houses of Congress and the White House at the same time, they said yes to everything Joe Biden asked for. We brought in record-breaking revenue to the federal government last year. Over
Ari, I
$4 trillion.
appreciate you.
More revenue than we've ever brought in the past. More
Happy
revenue
to
than
cover
just a
this.
few years ago.
Welcome to the
federal
channel.
government spent in a
If
whole
you're new.
year. And I'm talking Social Security to defense and
Be sure
everything
to
in
like,
between.
share, subscribe.
The problem is, while we brought in over $4 trillion, we spent nearly $7 trillion. This happened because Joe Biden had a dual backstop in Congress. What we need now more than ever is a Republican-controlled Senate. If you want that and to bring inflation under control, I ask for you to vote for me.
He did make
Mr.
the normal
McMullin.
cowbell reference.
Look, again, it is both parties. Where was Senator Lee when President Trump was spending recklessly during an expansionary period? Senator Lee will say that he was voting no. But I'll tell you what, it didn't work. We still added to the debt during that time. We're adding more now, and on and on and on. The job of a senator, especially representing our state, has to be to stand up to leaders of both parties, to Joe Biden and to Donald Trump. That's what's required, Senator Lee, because both parties are spending recklessly. And you vote no. And let me say, Senator, I think it's right that a senator should be willing to stand even alone and vote no. And you're very good at that. But you know what? It can't be the only thing you do. That's not the job of the senator. The job of a senator representing Utah is to work across party lines to solve problems. We have a legacy in this state of sending senators to Washington. Senator Bennett, Senator Hatch, now Senator Romney. They worked and work together across party lines to solve problems, Senator Lee. They don't only vote no, they're at the table negotiating a better deal for Utah.
I'm disappointed that we
and
got
our
Senator
country,
Lee.
And I'm committed to doing that
pretty
on our
good.
spending and on every
Romney.
other issue.
I know.
Senator Lee, you've asked for a rebuttal.
I'm not really impressed by
Yeah, we've long had a
any
problem
of the candidates.
where we've had at least 50
Utah.
Democrats, all 50 Democrats, willing to vote for any amount of spending. And tragically, you've typically had at least 10 Republicans willing to
Lee
cross
is
party
definitely
lines to vote for the
worse in my
Democrats'
eyes
spending
than
priorities.
McMullin, but
Look, I called out President Trump all the time. I voted less with President Trump than anyone else other than Rand Paul and Susan Collins. In fact, I called out President Trump about spending bills specifically, including one time when he called me on my airplane coming back to Utah, and I told him it was a huge mistake. I called him out in public and in private, on a train, in the rain, with a fox in a box, every time I got the chance.
There we go. Okay, we have another question
Romney
that's
is
coming
horrible.
to us from social
he's the
media,
worst.
and we're very pleased
like a
to
Lindsey
include
Graham.
those folks tonight.
He's worse than
Prescription
Lindsey
drug
Graham, actually.
prices in America are out of control. What would you do to make them more affordable? And this time we
allow
go
the
to
free
Mr.
market to be the free market.
Yeah, well, look, we have to allow the taxpayer to fully negotiate on prescription drugs as a part of a free market. And right now, that's not what we have. We pay more for prescription drugs in our country than almost anyone on earth. And it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. You know, my opponent, Senator Lee, who's taken over $4 million from special interest groups during his time in the Senate. Yes, we count, Senator Lee, we've counted it up. It's well over $4 million. A lot of that coming from special interest groups in big pharma who are paying you and putting money in your pockets. Senator Lee,
you consistently vote against and introduce bills that prevent the taxpayer from freely negotiating in a market lower prescription drug costs. And you're so proud of your work on that. But all it does is make big pharma companies, allows them to charge Americans far more than they should. Do you think it's right that we pay more for prescription drugs here in America than almost any other people in any other country? Is that right? I wonder if you'd be so proud and if you'd have that same smirk if a woman named Ann, who I met on the campaign trail here, she pays more for life-saving prescription drugs for her child than she does for her mortgage every month. And Senator Lee, she reached out to your office pleading for help. And in response, she received a dismissive form letter. I wonder if you'd still be smirking if she were here today,
We're
Senator
over 30
Lee.
seconds, and we'll make that time good on your side, Senator Lee.
Look, competition lowers prices, and it brings up quality. What we need is competition. That's why I've long supported allowing the importation of drugs from neighborly countries with regulatory systems that we can trust. Now, I'm with Bernie Sanders on this one, feeling the burn. Drives the drug companies absolutely berserk. But I support it because it's free market, and it's free market in a way that would bring about more competition and lower prices. What my opponent has just suggested to you as freely negotiating is code. It's democratic code for price controls. He supports price controls as recently enacted into the Orwellian-named Inflation Reduction Act, which does nothing of the sort. What we know about price controls is that they shift around prices. They still bring about price increases, but they leave people with fewer options, less viable medical care. That is the last thing we need in the United States of America.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your responses. And we mentioned just a moment ago, we have a student on deck with us. A question from Utah State University student Mike
saucy.
Good evening to both of you.
Good evening.
My question relates to foreign policy. In light of recent events, the possibility of war seems to be the most likely it's ever been for most college students.
Thank you. Finally.
Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran have become increasingly aggressive and bold militarily. How will each of you approach foreign policy in the Senate to ensure the United States remains internationally dominant in times of both peace and war?
If I could jump in here as we throw it to Senator Lee first. We're going to keep the responses to 1 minute for the remainder of the program so we can hopefully get into
this guy is so controlling.
Yeah, a lot to cover in a minute. There are things we have to do right away. First is invest in hard power. We need to increase the size of our naval fleet. We need to invest in systems like the updated, modernized International Ballistic Missile System. We've got to do those things immediately. As far as the soft power side of things go, we need robust bilateral trade agreements with other countries in Asia to offset China. And we could do that if we continue to work with the other Quad countries, including and especially India and of course, Australia and Japan. If we had more of that free trade, China would be less belligerent. We also need a Republican offset to a president who's not all there.
Why is he talking like this?
For whom
it's like driving me nuts.
My opponent voted. A president who has been saber-rattling and speaking of Armageddon under circumstances that are deeply troubling to all of us.
And Mr. McMullin.
Well, Senator Lee, I think both you and I have had times of frustration over the last several years in the options being provided to us at the presidential level by both parties. In 2016, as you recall, you voted for me out of that frustration when you stood on principle, as you should have. Yeah. So look, I think that we have to strengthen our relations with other free nations. I agree that trade is absolutely critically important, especially on the Pacific Rim side. We need to invest in advanced technologies. We need to do all of these things. So Senator Lee and I have some agreement, at least based on your comments tonight on these things. But I'll tell you what is also important. We need to elect leaders and representatives of this freedom-loving state that will stand up to foreign dictators and not enable them. Senator Lee, remarkably, you are the only member of Utah's congressional delegation he already knows where I'm going, not to be blacklisted by Vladimir Putin. It's just an incredible distinction. But there's a reason why. It's because in 2017, Senator Lee was one of only 2 senators to vote against sanctioning Putin's regime. Then in 2019, he went to Russia alone and discussed lifting sanctions with him. He has voted repeatedly against supporting Ukraine. He has.
Mr. McMullin, we are out of time.
I could go on and on.
We are out of time. And Senator Lee, you've asked for a rebuttal.
dictators.
Instead of 30 seconds, we'll give you 45 seconds.
I voted against the sanction bill because it was cobbled together in a piece of legislation with some progressive ideology. Perhaps you're okay with that. I was not. I voted against it. As far as going to Russia, yeah, I went to Russia at the invitation of my friend, mentor, and former boss, John Huntsman, who was then the U.S. ambassador to Russia. I did so because I needed to stand up for religious freedom. We had had missionaries and other Americans imprisoned for their religious beliefs in Russia, and I found this unacceptable. That's why I went there.
Did nothing.
As to why they haven't blacklisted
Right.
me, I don't know. I'd love to be blacklisted there. I've been banned for life from China.
Great, now my
I
husband's
hope Russia will ban me next.
Sorry, Miley.
But for you to suggest, as you have repeatedly, that I'm
Or
some
Maori.
sort of
Sorry, I
fan
don't
of
know.
Vladimir Putin is absolutely false and disgraceful.
Okay, let's move on to another question. Please, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies, shut
Thank you
up.
for
Shut
making
your
that
mouths.
brief so we can move on. How are both of you thinking about the legal question that arises from the Dobbs decision from the Supreme Court, where different states now can and will have different laws on how to handle abortion? And I believe we're starting with, I'm trying to remember. I'm waiting for the magic voice in my ear, and apparently they have abandoned me. So let's start with Mr. McMullin.
All right, this is the word I'm looking for.
Look, now that states are making decisions on this issue, I think that it's absolutely critically important that we find a constructive way forward on the issue. I'm pro-life, and I've always believed in the sanctity of life. And I oppose the extremes on both sides of this issue. Those who are in favor of late-term abortions on demand, or those who would ban abortions without exceptions. I think that's wrong.
That's it, Christmas is
This issue
canceled.
is dividing our country unnecessarily. It doesn't have to be this way. There is a more constructive way forward. It's making contraception more available, doing more to support women, children, and families, and imparting the right values to our youth. That's what we can do to lower the abortion rate in America. Some of these bills that I see being passed around the country are extreme.
I didn't expect the pro-life
like
thing.
this idea that we would force a 10-year-old
Utah.
rape victim to carry a pregnancy to term.
Drake.
That's wrong. And my opponent has defended these bills.
Well,
and I think
it's always
you have,
like the most
Senator, you have. I watched the tape myself.
Fringe thing that
Senator
they make the
Lee,
entire
you
argument
have defended
about.
these bills. I watched a tape this morning, you defending the Texas bill, for
Okay,
example.
we'll have Senator Lee respond at this point.
As a pro-life American who loves the Constitution deeply, I'm thrilled with the Dobbs decision. Roe versus Wade was a legal fiction, cut out of a whole cloth from the imagination of a few Supreme Court justices. I'm glad it's been overturned. And this authority has finally been returned to the states where it belongs.
Aren't there condoms at gas stations?
I respect the fact that you used to be
like 75 cents
of the same agreement. You used to agree with me that Roe versus Wade was really wrong. You went on MSNBC a few months ago and said you defended it, and you opposed efforts to undo it. You also derided as extreme.
Wait, you just said he's pro-life.
Utahns
I'm confused.
And Utah for having a law that strongly protects unborn human life. As far as where we go from here.
Good to know. Thanks, James.
Now that it's
James is
been
our
returned to the
Utah
states
guy.
where it belongs,
Thank you, James Richards.
I believe that is where it belongs. And with a small handful of exceptions dealing with federal funding, this ought to be where this is where it should remain, because it's within the states where we can achieve the most consensus and protect the most babies.
Let's go now to
making
ABC4
contraception
reporter Glenn Mills
more available
for our next
That's
question.
such a dumb argument.
Gentlemen, as
you
we
get
speak,
condoms at
the
Costco.
fate of
Praise God.
thousands of dreamers across the country lies in the balance as DACA makes its way through the court system. In the meantime, advocates are calling on Congress to act.
There you go, Alsassi.
My question is, do you support a permanent solution? And if
Gavin
so,
Newsom.
what needs to be included or perhaps even excluded from the legislation for you to be able to vote for it?
Senator Lee, you go first on this one.
Yeah. With DACA beneficiaries, I don't think any member of Congress of either party disagrees. We have to do something. There are a lot of people who have been brought here as children, sometimes as infants, by no choice of their own, by their parents. In many instances, these individuals don't even know the language of their home country, let alone know anyone there. So I don't know anyone in Congress who believes that they should be systematically, categorically, uniformly deported. It's not physically possible, and it would seem inhumane and unlike us as
I can't read that
Americans.
on YouTube, saucy.
What I do believe is that in order for us to get to a solution that we have, we first have to secure the border. We were close. We were to the point where we could have gotten this done. This has long been a conditioned precedent, a bright line for me and so many others. We have control of the border. We can figure out how to deal with those in this status. At the end of the last administration, the border was secure for the first time in my lifetime as an adult. President Biden, the president for whom my opponent voted, opened up the doors. And we've had millions of illegal immigrants flowing into the country ever since then, bringing in fentanyl, opening the door for human trafficking. This is disgraceful, and it's got to be overcome before we can come up with a permanent solution.
Mr.
But we do
McMullin,
have
we'll
to
give
have
you
one.
15 additional seconds.
Yeah, thank you. Well, let me just say, I don't think you answered the question, Mike, whether you would support citizenship for Dreamers. I'll say very clearly.
Ooh, Dreamers.
I would. And the reason I would is because these people have been brought to America as children by their parents, perhaps others, through no fault of their own. The idea that he would even leave the door open to any deportation of them, I think, is cruel, Glenn. And I oppose it. It is. Yes, where do you want to send them home? This is their home, Senator Lee.
Not at all what I said, Evan. Not at all.
Would you oppose deportation of any Dreamers in the United States, living lawfully here, living law-abiding lives otherwise?
You've got 36 seconds left. I suggest you use it.
Yeah, thanks, Senator Lee. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I also agree that we need to secure the border. That's important.
Fire.
You know, we can't have an effective immigration system if we're not a nation of laws. And I do believe we need to secure our border and make a lot of other reforms to our immigration system. Immigrants are a tremendous source of strength for our country. They have made our country prosperous. In the CIA, when I served abroad, I served with many officers who had immigrated to America, and they made us stronger. I think they are a great service. They're a great source of strength for the country. But I do need,
everyone crossing the border
our laws and
is
secure
good.
The border. But Dreamers should be given citizenship.
Dreamers.
Thank you for your responses, gentlemen. And I'd like to go to a question that has a very, very
Imagine
big
believing that
impact
everybody
on
crossing the
state of
border is
Utah,
just
but obviously it
good-hearted.
affects the
Every
entire
single
country
person.
and elsewhere in the world. Every Utahn, when we look at a map, we can easily find our state by spotting the Great Salt Lake. The lake is part of who we are, and it's in terrible shape as a historic drought that has been going on and on. And the now recorded level of the lake is at the lowest level in recorded history. What will you do to help the Great Salt Lake survive? This is something that, yes, we have a lot to do in the state of Utah, but it's going to take some help and some coordination from Washington as well. Mr. McMullin.
Absolutely. Well, this is as much an environmental issue as it is an economic issue, as it is a health issue. We have got to save the Great Salt Lake. Look, if elected, I am committed to ensuring that we have the resources. You know, we send billions of dollars every year as Utahns to the federal government, and we need some of that money back to strengthen our water infrastructure. We've also got to improve our conservation practices. It's both of those things. Unfortunately, my opponent routinely votes against bills that would improve water infrastructure. He did it this year. He did it in the year before. Meanwhile, Senator Romney has worked hard and consistently over the past 3 years. I think it's important. He works with Republicans and Democrats, Senator Lee, to deliver for Utah. And he voted in favor of the bipartisan infrastructure bill that you voted against. And now tens of millions of dollars have already been directed to Utah to strengthen our water infrastructure. You voted against that. You voted against the Safe Water Drinking Act in the year before that. You were one of only 2 senators to do so. Meanwhile, our state is in the middle of a severe drought. We need leaders who are going to work across party lines to solve problems and ensure that we have what we need to strengthen our water infrastructure and conservation practices.
Senator Lee, you have an additional 15 seconds.
You didn't even say climate change.
I agree that water storage infrastructure is an important part of this puzzle. When rain stops falling at the rate it usually has fallen in the past, we have to deal with it. We can't just legislate more water. And so sometimes we need to transport water from one part of the state to the other. I've repeatedly, emphatically, strongly and boldly stood up for the need for more water storage infrastructure. Yeah, I voted against that bill.
I know I watch Temple right now, but I found your channel to watch the debate.
More than we have.
James.
On all sorts of things that were not appropriately federal. This one was. 2/3 of our land is federal.
I'm getting a lot of Temple refugees.
It's not just the money that we need.
Come on down.
It's also the studies that we need. Congressman Moore has introduced legislation calling
Pretty
for studies
similar
so we
in a
can
lot of
understand
areas
why this is
with
happening.
Temple.
But more than anything,
I appreciate you being here, man.
Reform. The need to build water storage infrastructure is often thwarted and slowed, sometimes by decades, by NEPA and other permitting restrictions that can delay these projects for decades at a time. I've introduced a bill called the Unshackle Act, along with a plethora of other proposals that would streamline federal permitting. It's the single best thing that we can do to help the Great Salt Lake and the rest of our state along with it.
We have standing on deck now from the Salt Lake Tribune, the political editor, Jeff Barrett. Jeff?
Good evening, gentlemen. Utahns have seen your commercials. We certainly saw the signs on the way in.
His last name is Parrott.
Some of these ads have been paid for by your campaigns, others by political action committees not directly affiliated with either of you. While campaigns can't legally coordinate their messaging with PACs, candidates are not stopped from speaking out against ads that they didn't endorse. Are there any outside PAC ads that were published on your behalf that didn't share your values?
Senator Lee, you're first on this one, and we are going to ask you to stick right on the clock. We're getting close to the end of the program. We want time.
You better stick to that clock, or
I want to make clear, my TV ads don't talk about my opponent. My TV ads have mentioned my opponent only once. A couple months ago, we referred correctly to the fact that he voted for Joe Biden. Other than that, it's been about me. You see, parties are something that you say shouldn't matter. You say you want to put country over party. I respect that. Parties are an important proxy. They're an important proxy for ideas. You see, because it's ideas more than parties that tell the people how you will vote. You owe it to them. You, Evan, have refused to talk about ideas. Refused to talk about which party you'd join. You've refused to talk about ideas. Instead, you're asking the people to put faith, blind trust in you. It's your judgment. That is not how we lead to a good policy outcome. And so for that reason, I talk about my ideas in my ads. I would suggest that you do the same. As for outside groups, they don't use the same messaging I use. You can tell what messaging I think is best by what I use.
Ed McMahon got his militant towards the
hit pieces, every single one of them.
Your time now, Mr. McMullin.
First of all, that's just not true, Senator Lee. Not all of our ads point out distinctions between us. But Senator Lee, the question was, did you oppose any of the attack ads by outside groups on your side? Now, one of the groups, a far-right special interest group that you're quite beholden to, ran, yeah, that's true, Senator Lee, ran an ad that doctored an interview of mine in order to make it seem as though I said something that I didn't. And Senator Lee, why can't you condemn that? Do you need the lies? Look, we've got to protect voters' access to truth. We've got to, and any groups on my side that have been supporting me have, I think, been quite fair, Senator Lee. They've talked about your votes. Those are a matter of public records, and those have been quite fair. I'm running as an independent because our politics are broken. Senator Lee wants you to think party, party, party. Your party owns your vote. That it's all about Republicans versus Democrats. I reject that.
We need to cut it here.
If we prevail, it will make Utah the most influential state in the union. From Lee, we're getting very little.
That we have plenty of time for the closing comments, which we have promised to each candidate. We are on television, so it's very, very close. We've got to hit the clock. So, Mr. McMullin, you have the first opportunity by the random choice.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you all who have joined us in person and via television. Look, again, I'll say, our politics in America are broken. Party bosses of both sides have far too much influence. Special interest groups who have given Senator Lee over $4 million during his time in the Senate by the people we elect, and they remain accountable to them, not us. The extremes in our politics have far too much influence in the Republican and Democratic parties. And that is not the Utah way. They don't represent most of us. Our politics are broken to the point that our country's future is now at risk. Most of us know that our country, it feels as though we're coming apart now because of the broken politics you hear from my opponent. If we prevail in this race, it will make Utah the most influential state in the union because nothing will get through the Senate without Utah's support. And I know that with that influence, we will do a tremendous good, not only for ourselves, but for the country.
Thank you, Mr. McMullin. And Senator Lee.
If this were an ordinary year, if we weren't staring right down the barrel of a deep and dark economic recession, if we weren't seeing reckless federal spending causing us to careen into a situation where we're seeing spikes in inflation, spikes in interest rates, and spikes in the price of gas, if we weren't seeing our adversaries around the world saber-rattling with nuclear weapons and a president speaking of Armageddon, perhaps in that moment, seriously entertaining the idea of supporting an opportunistic gadfly supported by the Democratic Party might make for interesting dinner table conversation. But this is not an ordinary year. Look, you know who I am. You know what I fight for. I fight for religious freedom. I fight for personal liberty and did so during COVID. I fight and will continue to fight for criminal justice reform, and I'm leading the effort on bipartisan reform to make sure that we don't ever go to war without Congress approving it. I love our country and our state, and I humbly ask for your vote.
Our thanks to Senator Mike Lee, please.
No clapping, I said it.
Our thanks to Senator Mike Lee and Evan McMullin for participating tonight and for your
We just watched two debates, people.
To serve in public office. Election Day is Tuesday, November 8th. Registration and voting deadlines
We did it.
are fast approaching. We encourage you to contact your county clerk if you have any questions about making your vote count.
Any questions? And if you'd like to play the game show, come on down. It's me, Ed McMahon, and I'm ready to get after it
We appreciate
today.
the panelists and their contributions.
Derek, I'm not
And those
saying
who submitted
McMullin hosts
questions in
Roman
advance or used social media tonight to add
We
their
use
input.
social
We
media
also
for
greatly
our
appreciate
own
the many
good.
broadcasters who have aired tonight's debate.
Oh,
Thank you
we
so
did
much
it.
for
We
joining
did
us
it,
tonight.
people.
And now, your applause.
And now you may actually applaud. I swear to God, if you would have done that in the middle of my debate, I would have freaking went nuts on you guys.
Oh, we did it. We did it. All right. We finished that last one. What? Who do you guys feel like won that debate? I'm going to put who won. That's it. The debate is over. That's what you get for clapping, you bastards. I know. I know. Hey, guys. Those of you guys that are new to my channel, we do a live show on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Friday is my call-in show. It's official. I can't tell if I'm going to make that call-in show all on Rumble, but I think I'm going to have it on YouTube until it makes it too much and I might have to cut it. But we do a live show and it's usually very interactive. It's not like the hot guy won. He did win. The libertarian from the first debate. I'm still thinking about him. But we do a live show. We go through the news. We go through fun videos, clips of the day. Those of you new. And it's a very interactive show. It's not a sit back and listen show. It's a like chat with me, and all that kind of stuff. And be sure to share this with your friends and family. But we will go live for debates coming up because there are some more debates coming up this week, which is awesome or stupid. You be the judge of that. But we got a lot of debates coming up for this week, and I will go live for all those debates if I can. Like I say, I work full time as well, but you know how that goes. Life happens. I think who do we have this debate? Well, I think the next debate isn't until I think Friday. We got some debates. But yeah, I will look into that, and I will always be live for debates coming up because I love freaking debates. They're always. Yeah, I don't know if we have any debates till Friday. Is everyone's thoughts? Is the hot guy won? The hot libertarian guy won?
I think he was a military vet, so he's got it going on.
Stupid. Hi guy is going into my dreams in all the night in all the right ways. Me too. Chords, good show. Thanks for making this funny. Hey, I appreciate it, man. Also, we try to laugh. We have a lot of laughs because if you're not laughing, you're crying at this point. The world is a nutcase and crazy. I try not to be the world is ending. It's more of a white pill kind of show, and lots of hope and finding joy in our insane politics, because it is insane. If you don't think our politics is insane, I don't know what to tell you. And also, if you think one side is good and the other side is bad, you're not paying attention. So we try to cut through all the BS and we try to laugh and have a good time. Did California do debate? I'm not totally sure. I had I don't know if there's any more debates this week, like live debates. Politician debates. Also, can we talk about how Georgia's debate kept cutting out? That was unbelievable. I couldn't believe what I was watching. But yeah, it's usually a lot more clips, a lot more interactive, and more fun, and a lot of laughing. Plus, the call-in show will be going on. We're laughing all the way to the gulag. I know. Just kidding. Good attitude. I'm trying to have a good attitude, man. If you don't have a good attitude with all this craziness going on in the world, I don't know. But it looks like there might be some debates. What did you guys watch the Herschel Walker debate with Warnock? I didn't really catch it because I was on vacation, so I just got back. But it didn't look like it was. I think people thought. What's his face? Herschel Walker did better than they thought he was going to do. Set your calendars for Dr. Oz and Nick Fetterman, October 25th. Oh, it's set. We will definitely do the Dr. Oz Fetterman debate, because I still don't think that debate will happen. I still do not think that Fetterman will bow out. There's no way. If he goes to that debate without his little teleprompter, that is a political suicide, my friend. Because the difference between the two will be so staggering, they won't know what to do. It's Skynet, dude. I saw clips. Probably. But I appreciate you guys for hanging out with me. It means a lot to me that you're hanging out with me. Tomorrow night show will be a full show, be back to normal, and be back to having more fun and stuff like that. Check out some of my silly shows I did earlier today, especially the show on Boston and what is happening in Boston University, and they created a new COVID strain that kills 80% of rats. So awesome! Like, we live in such an insane world. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, That was the first debate I remember watching today. This was the first debate I remember watching today. Yeah, me too. But we did Stacey Abrams and we did Mike Lee, so that was interesting. It's Fetterwoman. Yes. Let's never forget Fetterwoman. Fetterwoman is in our hearts. But yeah, tomorrow we'll be back full scale. Also, feel free to DM me on any social media platform of videos you want me to watch on the show or react to or anything like that, as long as it's, I'm able to or not, is not going to get me kicked off of YouTube. They used Joe Biden's feeblest against Trump. I'm not sure what I know what you mean. Mike Lee versus Evan McMullin was a decent debate. It was much better than the first debate. The Kemp and Stacey Abrams debate was not good. It was not as good as I thought it was going to be. Chords is doing. You're crazy, man. Hunter Biden and Stacey Abrams 2028. You think Stacey? Wait, who's VP? Can't be Stacey Abrams. She's queen of. She's president of the universe on Star Trek. So no way she's going VP. Unleash the new lockdown right in time for 2022, 2024 lockdown. Oh, God. I mean, from what I was reading on that Boston University thing, if that thing gets let out, it'll be the climate change they've all been looking for, That is like way more serious than our last one. GA debate was flat. Yeah, it was flat. Kemp was flat. It was like Governor Abbott, he had the same kind of vibe as Governor Abbott. Governor Abbott was also pretty flat. I mean, he was a little bit better than Kemp, but Kemp was just... I don't think it wouldn't be wise for Kemp to do another debate because it'll just make him look worse. Because it looked like Stacey Abrams was on her A game and ready to go and charged up, and then Kemp was just like, I don't know, I'm here to show up. You're just like, come on, dude. This is it. This is at least Kemp versus Abrams had a hot guy. The hot guy will never be forgotten. But McMullin's, I kept reading about McMullin, and I kept seeing that he's an actual potential threat. And after that debate, no way. I know James Richards says that he wasn't debating. Also, Mari said that he's not a threat, but I don't. Now I've confirmed he looked terrible. He looked absolutely terrible. So no concern whatsoever in Utah, unless Utahns are just going to vote blindly, which happens a lot. You'd be surprised how many people vote and have no idea who they're voting for. They're just voting for something different. Never put it past people to vote for somebody with insane views. People will just choose something different all the time, or it's almost like they want a cycle. They want they want the blue to go, and then they want the red turn, and it's just like, I'm just going to vote for somebody different every 4 years, which I don't know. But make sure to get involved. Tell your friends and family about the Derek O'Shea Show. I appreciate every one of you guys. Cords on Rumble, I appreciate you. Old Saucy, I appreciate you for stopping by. Andre on Rumble, I appreciate you for stopping by. For real, thank you so much. Lee was a bigger threat to Lee than McMullin was. 100%, man. Papa, I appreciate you. Queen Bird, always appreciate you coming by. James Richards, appreciate you. Killer T-Cell, what's up? Independents are often absurd and infuriating. Yo, 100%. A lot of independents seem like they're not ready to debate, or they just cringy. But it's also the moderators don't really give them the platform they deserve because they're not seen as serious contenders or serious to the debate, and which is true in some degree. So it's just not a good system. Let me give politics a shot. Yeah, that's what it kind of seems like. Good times. I appreciate you. Who else? James Richards, thanks for coming in hot. I'm coming in hot. For real. Find it, fix it. Appreciate you. Censored Mom. Appreciate you. Sturferney. Appreciate you. Gaz from Britain. Appreciate you. Derek O'Shea Show, thanks for having me, brother. Thanks for having me, brother. See you next time. Hey, no, thank you for being here. Are you kidding me? I will always appreciate every single one of you guys. You guys mean a lot to me. You guys keep me sane. I hope I keep you sane, and that's all that matters. Have a great day. I will see you tomorrow for the next show, the Derek O'Shea Show. Come hang out with us tomorrow. Tell your friends and family. It's a live interactive show, and we try to have as fun as possible. But when there's a good debate, I will put that debate on, and I will try to do my best not to talk throughout the whole way, but it's hard to sometimes. Have a great day. I appreciate you. Love you guys. Subscribe, folks. Yeah, subscribe. Have a great one. Appreciate you. Bye, guys.